allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excuse me. Not that I was checking up on you guys.
My chair got stuck under the, thank you. I was fighting with a chair.
Item C, calendar of up and coming meetings and activities and events. July 4th, Independence Holiday, the district will be closed. July 20th, regular board meeting. Excuse me.
That's you.
Thank you. Item 4, public comments. The public comments are intended for members of the public to address the Board of Education on items involving the school district. Such testimony shall be limited to 3 minutes each or 450 words per person, subject, and 15 minutes total each topic. If an answer to a specific question is requested, the board president will, if appropriate, direct administration to respond in writing. Do we have any public comments tonight, Mr. Beecher?
The first one we have tonight is from Brenda Lacio.
Good evening, board members. As a parent, I would like a written response to my questions. My name is Brenda Ciordia Palacios, and I'm the parent of an incoming 8th grader and an incoming 5th grader at Jimenez Elementary. One of the reasons I'm here is because I don't understand why sports, field trips, and educational activities were not part of the plans to return in person. How is it possible that our neighboring districts were able to offer and bring back educational activities, but our district did not plan accordingly? For example, my son and daughter are soccer players, and they're looking forward to being part of the school's team, but this never happened. There are many activities that have slowly been disappearing from our district, such as Battle of the Books, Spelling Bee, Math Super Bowl, Algebra in 8th grade, Honors English, after school activities, the opportunity to read novels in the classroom, just to mention a few. Why are my children being deprived from all of these experiences? Board members, are you familiar with the children in the district? Are you aware that for many of them, their first visit to a zoo, aquarium, pumpkin patch, swimming pool, science camp, or attending a play happened through a school field trip? All of these experiences provide enrichment to our children. If students really come first in a district, all of these educational activities must return. Board members, I ask you to advocate for them as plans for the next school year are being made. Ensure that there are funds allocated for field trips, sports, and other enrichment activities. Lastly, I'm very disappointed with the fact that 6th grade celebrations and 8th grade graduations have been minimized. For the last 4 weeks, social media was flooded with pictures and videos of families celebrating promotions and graduations in our neighboring districts. Why didn't the children from our district have this opportunity? Again, why are other districts placing forward the effort to organize, plan, and celebrate their students' success, but not our district? My daughter will be in 8th grade next year, and she's already disappointed thinking she will not have the opportunity to formally celebrate her accomplishments in this district. I hope that something can be done and that you will position to make a change. Be the voice of our children. Thank you, board members, for your time, and to the parents here watching this at home, get involved. Padres, involúquense. De otra manera, nada cambiará. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Hazel Davalos.
Hello, board. Good evening. My name is Hazel Davalos. I am here as a staff member of CAUSE, a community organization, but also as a mom to an incoming kindergartner at Jimenez School, and fortunately for us, the dual immersion program. I was proud to sign on as a parent and an organization to a letter you all received this morning. A coalition of 60 parents and 14 organizations have express their gratitude to the board for creating the dual immersion program, but really are pleading with you to consider expanding it. There's a lot of compelling details in that letter, but I can tell you my own testimony of having gone through what I call the Hunger Games lottery of getting into our dual immersion program. I went to our first parent night, and there were easily 25 families in this room, 15 in the other. So like 40 families, the first of 4 parent nights. And we were informed that there's 60 spots total for incoming kindergartners in the program, and over 20 of them were already given to the younger siblings of current students in the program. So we already knew we're 40 parents at the first parent night of 4, and there's maybe less than 40 spots in the total program. And so that was just a really nerve-wracking few months as we waited for that lottery. And I can just share with, for our family, it was really emotional. It was really considering, whether our dream of our children being bilingual could happen. We were thinking, what other way could we make this happen? Figure out a way to live in Mexico, get a tutor, but knowing it's not going to work. For any bilingual families, we're bilingual. Our kids here speak English. They speak English. Their grandmas only speak Spanish, but they're just not going to learn Spanish on their own in our house. They need to do it in the school. And so, I cried when we got picked. It was a really big deal. And I promised myself that I wouldn't take that for granted, and I really want to see that for more families. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Yvonne Duran.
Does that sound okay? Yeah, okay. Good evening. My name is Yvonne Duran, and I teach 5th grade at Robert Bruce Elementary School. My comments are about LCAP and Tier 2, Tier 3 support. On page 71 of the report, under themes for LCAP collaboration team meetings, Tier 2 and Tier 3 support during the school day is listed. This is not a new trend. Anytime you ask teachers what they need to be more effective, the answer is something like more bodies in the classroom and academic support services to meet the needs of our diverse students. Prior to COVID, my school had 2 intervention teachers and 2 teacher tutors. In the last couple of years, intervention teachers were converted to coaches, limiting their contact time with students, and teacher tutors were eliminated or relegated to expanded learning programs. The 21-22 LCAP stated that expanded learning would exist to help with COVID learning loss. Yet in reality, our students have had less academic support services during the school day than ever before. The plan for 22-23 seems to call for more of this, and here are some of my concerns about this approach. Students who need the most academic help do not always stay for after-school programs. Please target their needs during the school day. After-school programs did not happen in many schools this year because of a lack of staff. Teachers who must do everything for their students during the school day do not have anything left to give at the end of the day. Additionally, a second meeting has now been adding to our work week. Whereas extended day programs used to run Monday through Wednesdays, grade levels will now meet on a Monday through Wednesday, making it difficult for one teacher to run a program. It's been suggested that teachers just partner up with another teacher. Again, asking more from teachers as if it was no big deal to coordinate and plan co-teaching. At the last LCAP meeting, it was reported that about 1,600 students had signed up for summer school. That's about 10% of our total student population. Yet we know that far more than 10% need additional academic support. We cannot make students attend summer school. Please target their needs during the school day. There's also been a false dichotomy set up between coaches and intervention teachers. We can have both. I am committed to professional learning, to coaching, and to improving my practice as an educator, but that does not change the constraints of time and space. As one teacher, I cannot possibly meet all the academic needs of students reading from a pre-K to a 6th grade level. Please target these needs during the school day. It's been said that this can't be done because it will interfere with Tier 1 instruction. This is a fallacy. If the general education teacher is at the back of the room running a small group, there is no core grade level tier 1 instruction happening at the front of the room for the student to miss. In the past, my tier 3 students were pulled by a teacher tutor during the time that I was running a small group. We also need additional assistance for our ELs. The LCAP includes bilingual aids for primary grades and junior high students, but none for upper elementary, as if we do not get newcomers in 3rd through 6th grades. Please target their needs during the school day. And finally, the discussion of the panorama data fails to make connections between a decrease in students' favorable ratings and the academic services they receive. In the 1920 school year, we still had intervention teachers and teacher tutors working with our students during the school day. The ratings were higher then. During the year of the shutdown, distance learning, and even in our return to the 21-22 in-person school year, students have not had access to those services. Ratings of connectedness and caring adults dropped. Students feel seen, connected to the learning community, and cared about when their academic needs are being met. Right now, we are not meeting the needs of our struggling readers and many of our ELs. It is possible that they are letting you know that in not so many words. If we are not meeting their needs during the school day, how can we ask them to sign up for more after school? Again, we need the support staff to assist with tier 2 and tier 3 during the school day. This will address academic needs of ELs, struggling readers, and meet the SCL needs of all students. Thank you for your consideration.
Our next speaker is Jacqueline Meza.
Hello, district board members. My name is Jackie, and I'm an alumni of the Santa Maria Bonita School District. I come here today to ask, why are you taking away the memories that your students could have created? Up to this day of me being a senior at UCSB, about to have my 2023 graduation, I can still remember the graduation and promotion I had at Fairlawn and El Camino. I still remember shaking the hands of those teachers that have had a great impact in my life, and walking the stage, knowing that I wanted to obtain a higher education and feel proud of myself again. Make my immigrant parents proud who came here with nothing, so they can feel proud of their daughter because of their sacrifices. I was able to walk the stage when they couldn't. I have 3 sisters. We all are now alumni of the school district, but the only one that didn't have a 6th grade promotion, a dance, field trips, was my 12-year-old sister. Parents were not allowed to be there when she got her certificate. COVID already took enough away from these students. Now please do not let you be the reason that they get more taken away. Taking away these activities such as sports, dances, graduation, promotions, field trips, takes away the chance for the students to be able to bond with each other. There are many other students here in the Santa Maria Bonita School District that, because their parents work many hours a day, 7 days a week, they don't have a chance to even get out of this town. And their only opportunity to do so was because of the school field trips. You guys are supposed to be looking for what is best for your students in this district. I cannot believe that you think that what is best for these students is to not be able to have these activities and create these memories that stay with you for the rest of your life. It is not fair that this is our only district that is allowing this. Thank you for your time.
Our next public comment is a written public comment. It was brought to this. It was brought to the school district in an email in Spanish, and it's been translated. So I'll be reading the translation for the school board tonight. Good evening, school board, and new superintendent, and everyone present tonight. My name is Francisco Lozano, father of a student who is about to enter El Camino Junior High School. As an active member and parent of the community, I am addressing you in the most respectful manner to ask for your support and bring ethnic studies as a requirement to our Santa Maria Bonita district, as it is very important for our children to have the knowledge of other ethnicities such as Asians, Orientals, African Americans, and their own descendants such as Hispanics and Mixtecs. Many children and adolescents seek power and identity in gangs where they do not belong. It is a world of doom that is not accepted within the society. I myself have supported Santa Maria High School with the study of ethnicity. I know that many students have embraced their own ancestry, their own culture without shame, and have taken the right path and made it all the way to college. Thanks to the Chicano studies that has begun at Santa Maria High School, enriching our identity and also valuing other ethnicities, we are creating good citizens for society itself for a better world. At Jimenez, we have a dual immersion program, but it would be very important to expand it in our district, and the bilingual seal has also been mentioned. That is why we need to bring ethnic studies to our district. I also apologize for spelling. I did not have the opportunity to go to school. I hope that we all work together for the Santa Maria Bonita School District, that it will be a healthy learning environment for the future of tomorrow. Thank you very much for your kind attention to my comment. Thank you.
Last for public comments?
Are all our public comments?
No comments on any non-agenda items? I have a motion for the approval as agenda presented.
I'll move we approve the agenda as presented. I'll second.
Ms. Cordero moves, Ms. Flores second. Roll call?
Mrs. Cordero?
Aye.
Mr. Hollinshead?
Aye.
Mr. Valencia?
Aye.
Mrs. Flores?
Aye.
Mr. Lara?
Aye. Item 6, consent agenda.
I'll move that we approve the consent agenda as presented. I second.
Ms. Cordero moves, Ms. Flores second. Roll call?
Mrs. Cordero?
Aye.
Mr. Hollinshead?
Aye.
Mr. Valencia?
Aye.
Mrs. Flores?
Aye.
Mr. Lara?
Aye, motion carries. Excuse me. Item 7A, student discipline actions of stipulated expulsion agreement. Mr. Beecher.
Thank you, Mr. Lara. District and the parents of student 2104 stipulated to the facts that are grounds for expulsion under the California Education Code. Based upon the stipulated agreement between the district and the parents and the stipulated recommendation on expulsion 2104, Board of Education is hereby requested to take action on said recommendation.
After reviewing the information in closed session, I move that the board adopt the stipulated expulsion agreement as presented. I second.
Ms. Cordero moves, Ms. Flores second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Roll call? Is
I
it
was
roll
going to
call?
say aye.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Mrs. Cordero?
Aye.
Mr. Hollinshead?
Aye.
Mr. Valencia?
Aye.
Mrs. Flores?
Aye.
Mr. Lara?
Aye, motion carries. Item 7B, approval of local control and accountability plan of the California School Dashboard Local Indicator. Ms. Dutra.
Good evening, Board President and members of the board. Before we start this item, I'd like to thank Ms. Herrick and Michelle Serratis and all of the department teams for their tireless work to complete this extremely comprehensive plan in support of our students. So thank you so much for all of your hard work. We're excited to present the final to you tonight. Ms. Herrick.
Thank you, Ms. Dutra. So I do want to thank you and say good evening, board members, interim superintendent, Mr. Beecher, cabinet members, and community members in the audience. Before I get started, I want to thank all of our educational partners as well as all those that Ms. Dutra thanked that were involved in the LCAP work this year. It's a lot of work, but we have completed the draft. Wait, hold on. All right, so as you're aware, our LCAP plan helps to tell our district story. Currently, our enrollment is 17,201 students, which includes TK through 8th grade students. We also have a preschool program that has an enrollment of around 531 students. You could also see here on our infographic that there's 82.62% of our students are considered socially economically disadvantaged. 54.83 of our students are population are English learners. We have 0.47% that are foster youth, and 91% of our student population are unduplicated count. Our 7 goals include supporting student learning, building systems for quality leaders and educators, preparing students for college and career, supporting English learners, ensuring a safe, healthy, and positive learning environment, promoting parent engagement, and ensuring that our culture is one of diversity and equity and inclusion. The plan summary has several parts to it. It includes the reflection and successes and identified needs, which we have reviewed in past meetings. These are generated from both quantitative and qualitative data, including our educational partners' input. So tonight I'm going to review 2 of the components of the LCAP. We're looking at the budget overview for parents that was reviewed by our DLAC. And we also showed this at our LCAP meeting. And I'm also going to go over the increased and improved services. And that part is in the back of the plan. So the LCFF budget overview for parents has several sections within it. This graphic shows the total general projected revenue Santa Maria Bonita School District expects to receive in the coming year. The total LCFF allocation of supplemental and concentration grant funds for the 2022-23 year is over $62 million. So as a result of our Santa Maria Bonita School District's 91% unduplicated count for foster youth, English learners, and low-income students, that is how we generate our funds for our LCFF supplemental concentration funds that are within the LCAP plan. So here you can see the general budget expenditures that are not included in the LCAP. They are used for ongoing operating costs to maintain existing programs and services for students, such as instruction and instruction-related activities, transportation, health services, farm materials and supplies and technology. Other general fund expenditures include maintenance of facilities, utilities, custodial activities, human resources, and business services. The total budgeted expenditures in the LCAP includes over $73 million. This amount includes the carryover amount from this year. So as a quick reminder, our supplemental concentration grant funds are used to support actions in the LCAP that are created to ensure that all students have access to the game in order to be competitive. With our educational partners, we looked at our data as we planned and considered investments that will provide equity, both academic and social emotional learning. So the increased and improved services is in the back of the plan. It's one of the most kind of complicated parts of the plan. And it's a very important section. So in this section, we must explain how all of our actions are going to increase services and quality or quantity for our students. So actions and services are either district-wide, school-wide, or they're limited to unduplicated student groups. So it's very important that we could explain exactly why, how our students will receive the services and what students will receive services. So we have used the following proactive recommended steps as we created and planned the 2022-23 year LCAP. We have developed actions through data-driven decisions, including all of our educational partners. You could see here the steps, and this is from the California Department of Education recommended of working on the LCAP. We gathered and analyzed data. You identify needs, develop strategies to address the needs, identified measures of effectiveness, and determine the scope of actions within all 7 of our goals. So this is one section of the increased or improved services part. For each action being provided to the entire school or across the entire school district, we have to explain how the needs of our foster youth, English learners, and low-income students were considered first. And then we have to look at how these actions are effective in meeting the goals for these students. So out of all of our 62 actions in our plan, 49 actions that are provided for the entire school district, and 13 are limited specifically to student groups. So I've listed some of these as examples, and they're also in the plan draft that you received. These are examples of services that serve all of our district, all of our students. So you could see library media services, our physical education teachers, specialists for first through third grade, sixth grade students, our professional learning, our new action service to recruit and retain experienced qualified certificated teachers, outreach mentors, and then our family advocates. But again, out of all of the actions and services, a lot are for all. And I just want to make sure to point that out. So when we look at the services that are limited actions that are provided only to serve foster youth, English learners, and our low-income students, we have to provide the description must address how these actions are expected to result in the required proportional increase or improvement of services for our unduplicated pupils as compared to the services that are provided for all. So these are some examples. Our English, our ELD instructional coaches, our bilingual instructional assistants, our TOSAs for English learners. We have our community partnership for our foster students, and then community partnership to support students who are experiencing homelessness. And I just want to point out that some of these student groups on the dashboard in 2019, there were gaps in perhaps like suspension data or in academic data. And so you really have to show how you have specific services to close that achievement gap for those groups of students. So the other part of our LCAP plan is that we have to include all of our local indicators as part of the state accountability plan. They are all included in our LCAP. I've covered them at the last meeting, and we've talked about them at our LCAP meetings, also at our DLAC meetings. We have met all of the qualifications of the priorities, including the basic conditions of learning, the implementation of state academic standards, parent involvement and family engagement, school climate, and then also access to a broad course of study. So at this time, I wonder if you have any questions. I know you had the draft and there's a lot in there. Oh.
Yeah, so one of the things that I noticed, Ms. Herrick, is that there's really a large portion dedicated to after school and then summer. And there was some alluded to that earlier, as to the efficacy of that. And we know from looking at people in other countries in this country trying to expand the school year that doesn't necessarily mean that there's better learning or more learning going on. So my question was going to be, how are we going to assess the efficacy of those programs in moving those? You know, you just talked about efficacy, you know, how they're going to be effective and stuff. I didn't notice what the means of assessing that was, or how we were going to determine the efficacy of those programs.
So I'm going to look to Lori here also, but I do know in the LCAP, there are specific measuring and reporting tools, but I'm going to have her share the specific ones for the expanded day programs that we have right now.
Okay, thanks.
For all of our expanded learning programs, we're able to track those students and disaggregate their data based on participation in the program, the type of program that they're participating in, and the level of participation. And then we track their NWEA, CASP, and LPAC scores, as well as any common formative assessments at the site to track that data. So as we finish this year, we're pulling those groups down from the whole school year, from after school lunch programs and now our summer programs. and we'll look at how they progress in both growth and achievement on NWEA as compared to the district as a whole. And we'll also look as much as we can at CASP, although we don't have a baseline from last year. And for those who are English language learners, we will look at their LPAC, not just their overall level or their redesignation criteria, but also their LP levels within, so growth within the domains as well.
So you're able to compare themselves to themselves and then to their peers who aren't receiving the same services?
That's correct. So our goal is to look at the students who are in the program, and then also the students who participated in the program with fidelity. So we know that sometimes students don't attend regularly to extended day or summer school. And so we're setting a baseline criteria for participation. So we'll be able to look at district students of that criteria as a whole, and then all students invited to the program, and then just the students who met our threshold of criteria for participation, so that we can see how much of an impact those programs have on achievement and growth for those students.
Awesome. Thank you. Because I share some of those concerns earlier spoken to.
Absolutely, as do we.
Yeah.
And we're happy to bring it online and start to really be able to disaggregate that
Awesome.
data.
Thank you.
You're
Or
welcome.
do the teachers get to see this data, or is it given to them?
They will as
Okay.
soon as we finish our first report. So since
I
we're just
understand
closing
that.
down the year,
Yeah.
we will publish that data and be able to share, and we'll ask that site leaders share that with their school site council and with their guiding coalitions and leadership teams and PLCs as well, which programs were most effective and how we can replicate and increase those offerings as well. So they haven't been shared yet because they don't exist yet, but they will be
Yeah,
shared
I
when it's
understand
published.
that. Okay. I'll just throw in there too, that there have been specific grant monies allocated for those extended day and summer school programs because of the COVID. I'm correct in that, in knowing that?
ELOG. Yes,
Yes.
the ELOG, and now we're transitioning to the ELOP funds to continue that work on a larger and more permanent scale.
So part of, what I'm not sure I want to say that it's been mandated, but in order to get those funds, you are agreeing to implement those programs in order to hopefully
Increase
mitigate
achievement, yes.
some of the, I don't want to say learning loss exactly, but
The unfinished learning.
unfinished learning. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. So
Anything else about assessment?
I have a question related to the LCAP, not necessarily to assessment.
Go ahead, Mr. Valencia.
So a question I have is do we have the ability at this point as a board to amend the monetary amounts allocated to each of those areas? Is that something that we as a board have the ability to do?
I'm going to refer to Mr. Beecher.
I think that, the board by consensus can provide direction. I don't know that we can change it tonight and bring it back to get it approved in time to comply with the requirements of providing an LCAP for the county to consider. But we're always going to be open to feedback.
And the reason that I'm bringing that up is that at our last board meeting approximately 2 weeks ago, is when we as a board received the packet with the monetary amounts allocated to each of these areas. And so if I'm not mistaken, shortly after that, we then posted that LCAP with monetary amounts on our district website. Is that correct?
Those were posted after the LCAP meeting, and then they were updated after the May revision, and then given to the board members and posted again.
Gotcha. And so that gives our community approximately how much time to look at actual monetary amounts allocated to each of these areas?
They were posted after the LCAP meeting, and I can't recall the date in May, but we do follow the guidelines that were given. And we also have to follow, the county kind of, supports us on that as well. So the county has gone through the plan as well.
And also, Mr. Valencia, the way that the process works throughout the years, we're continuing to carry these conversations with our education partners, talk about the actions and services that are in the LCAP. The monetary amount is only an expression, kind of a calculation or valuation of the actions and services that we talk about with our education partners. So it's not necessarily that start by saying, here's how we want to allocate our dollars. We start with, here are the things that we want to do. These are the things that we think will make a difference. Now let's go calculate what those things are going to be costing. To talk about changing allocations would be talking about specific actions and specific services that would be altered. It's a little bit different than saying I'd like to see more money here. It would have to be, the identification of that actual action or that actual service.
And the reason that I'm bringing that up is because, we've heard from multiple parents today and prior meetings, right, that dual language immersion expansion is a priority in this community. And I could be mistaken, but I believe approximately 18,000 is allocated to that. And if I'm incorrect with that, please feel free to correct me. But that number relative to the entire LCAP is a really, really small number. And one thing that I've learned from looking at budgets is that budgets are moral documents, essentially, right? They dictate what are the priorities, right? They should dictate what the priorities are of the community. And so I'm constantly hearing from our families the need to expand this work, but it's going to be difficult to expand dual language immersion if we're not allocating enough funding to be able to do that. And so that's why I'm asking the question: do we have the ability to, alter the LCAP in any way to better reflect the priorities of the community?
So I just want to speak to that action and service, the dual language action and service in the plan. I just want to say that is for supplemental services for our DLI school. That doesn't cover the LCFF general funds of what to run that school or to run a program. Like, for example, if we don't have space, it's not like we could use supplemental concentration grant dollars for new classrooms. And so that specific action and service is for a lot of additional books, bilingual books. It's also for professional learning. A lot of the teachers used to be able to go to CABE, some of the parents. And so that is specific to supplemental services to support the DLI school. So that is not for additional. I want to make sure that action and service, everyone understands that what it's for, the intention of it.
That means more money applied to dual immersion than that $18,000.
Correct. I mean, that's from a different fund.
Yes.
Or Ms. Flores, another way to say that is that the dual immersion program at Jimenez isn't encapsulated in the LCAP. It's not a part of this choice tonight. It is just the general direction that the school district has moved in, and we've started that school, right, at kindergarten, moving it up through the grade levels to 8th.
And so something that I would recommend in the future for our LCAP meetings, in terms of, for me, what would help improve our process is if I know that today, correct me if I'm wrong, we're required to approve our LCAP so that we meet the end of July deadline. But, the LCAP, in its totality is over 200 pages. And so if we want to give, board members like myself enough time to really sift through it, really analyze it, give our community members an opportunity, right, to look at what monetary amounts we've allocated to various priorities, I think that would help improve our process so that our community has more time to give us, quality feedback. And it would also give me more time as an individual board member to make informed decisions. Can we do that? Can we actually, for example, have this meeting a month before the required deadline so that we have some more time to think through it? Is that possible in the future?
I think that one way I would think about it is that the conversation around the local control and accountability plan happens constantly throughout the year. We have updates. We have the LCAP education partner meetings. The conversation is pretty consistent throughout the year, talking about what is going on within the LCAP and the different actions and services that are going on. So I think that there's a lot more that happens as it relates to understanding the LCAP than just this meeting or just the last meeting. The challenge with trying to make sure that this document is ready a month in advance is that it is a monumental task to get it for the board to review by last week, because it is 269 incredibly detailed pages that is constantly changing. Not just the fine tuning of the actions and services themselves, wordsmithing to make sure that our language is appropriate and powerful, and then making sure that it also reflects the current cost structure in the district. There's a lot that goes into it, and it would just be incredibly challenging to get a useful document that's going to stay still for 30 days from, say, if we decided to bring this to the board May 20th, document could not stay still for the next 30 days. Because there's so much information that comes out and additional input that has to be put on the report. So, I know that no matter what, communication can always improve, but we do make a concerted effort to make sure that there is a consistent conversation at each of those meetings. And, what shape that conversation around LCAP takes next year, obviously will be led by the incoming superintendent. So I can't predict exactly what that is outside of what the statute requires. But I think that getting a final document to the board that is going to stay still for a month prior to this meeting is going to be really difficult.
Can I, if you would, Mr. Lara, one of the things that we've done in the past or talked about in the past and really hasn't been well executed is getting the LCAP calendar up in display, either here at the district offices so that when somebody walks in, they can see an accounting of what that is. It was talked about before as being in the hallway or in a number of places, but that might be, I don't know if it's already on, is Brian over there? Mr. Ricky, if it's there with the LCAP on the website, but that may be something that we can have that's a part of the LCAP tab on our website, where the LCAP calendar is part of that, so that people can see what that process entails, when the meetings are, what things are, I think what Mr. Beecher is alluding to, what that process is in its totality over the course of the year. So it doesn't feel like, hey, I've got a whole bunch of information that's coming to me right now and I've got to distill it down. Like, you understand, we see the process, and it also gives people an opportunity to see where they can listen and hear what the priorities are that, as Mr. Valencia and we've talked about tonight, what those priorities are, and then how we can meet those priorities. Because it is kind of, the document is how we're doing this, right? We identified the whys, and this is going to be the how we're doing this, what we're doing and how we're doing it, right? And so I think that was one of the things that we've kind of let slide or let go by the wayside, as being more better communicators about how that calendar and how the entirety of that folds out over the course of the year.
I agree with you. That would, if we could get a calendar up on our
Yeah,
website
we
with
have
the
the
LCAP.
cycle of
So
that. You would request it before, we could update that. And we can make sure it's on the website. I also want to make sure that the board's aware that the county does approve our timeline. We're working with the county on this, and they do read and they do a preview. And it's really important that we have the May revision. So the total budget and putting the numbers in the back is very timely. And I've been doing this for a while, and you can't write about things that you don't know for sure yet. So the budget is something we wait for the May revise. Also, I was thinking about, the surveys and the assessment data. We had the assessment data, and the assessment and accountability team worked as quickly as possible to get us the last and final report. But that goes into the plan, and then we have to write about the reflections and identified needs. So a month is and it's not just our district. You'll look online and you'll see drafts and you'll see the actions and services and then kind of the building of the plan. But it is a lot of work and a lot of moving parts is the best way. I also want to bring it to everyone's attention that we did have an LCAP annual update in February that was brought to the board. And that was a very important piece. And it did include the budget and changes that we made throughout the year. So I know Mr. Ontiveros and I always talked about the LCAP, once it's approved, doesn't mean that in the middle, when we see something happening, that we can't make changes. So I just think that's really important. And Mr. Valencia brings up a good point. There might be something in there that you get the year started and there might need to be some shifts, and you can do that. So anything like that would go back to the board. And any type of, throughout the year, we look at the material differences and we have to write about those. And so there's a lot of checks and balances. And I'm predicting they'll have the February LCAP annual update again. So this was a very different year to have that. But in February, we brought that to the board, and there were some changes in that from where we started. So, but I did make a note of all your suggestions, and I appreciate that. I'll let Mr. Humphrey know and the team, Dr. Humphrey. Any other questions so far? I know there is a lot. Don't want to.
Ms. Eric, I have a follow-up question. Can you briefly summarize for us some of the key survey suggestions that took place from the folks that completed the survey regarding the LCAP, and how, if at all, was that survey data incorporated into the LCAP?
That was included in the educational partners section of the LCAP. I would honestly have to get that out. I do have the LCAP with me. But it is in that section, and I did cover that at some of the meetings. Would it be possible to put that in a memo, on a Friday memo? Or, that's part of the plan, or do you want me to?
I was just looking for, in what ways we incorporated the feedback that we receive from those surveys. Because one of the things that happens sometimes with surveys is people feel like they complete the surveys, but then they don't feel like their concerns or their requests, are addressed. And so I just want to, give the public a chance to hopefully, know that, that we honored their feedback, or maybe we didn't honor their feedback. And if so, that's good information for us as a board to know as well. So that's what I mean by the question.
I want to speak to that before I'm sorry. I've been participating, as have you, Mr. Valencia, in those LCAP meetings, and a lot of feedback data has been shared through those meetings. And just, at the last meeting and this meeting, there has been an expression of a desire, and really it has been over the course of most of this year, that our dual language immersion program be expanded. And while that is a significant feedback, the LCAP in and of itself is not, it doesn't change policy or direction of the district. That is something that would occur at a different level. So, if we were to make want to have that conversation, that's totally separate from the LCAP. It would only come in under discussion if we were to implement it, and then how could LCAP support that supplementally. The LCAP doesn't fund it, as Mr. Beecher very clearly explained. It is funded through general fund. So, and concerns were expressed, about the lack of certain activities at our school sites this year. And I know it has been stated at different times at our board meetings that one of the huge issues that we had over the course of the entire year was busing. We had to eliminate busing for a large number of students because we didn't have the drivers to drive the buses. So some of those activities and experiences that, our community has expressed, concern about, it wasn't a choice that we made to not do those activities. It was due to circumstances that were not within our control. So I think we need to be careful that we don't try to insert into LCAP spending or into the language any changes that are directly related to policies that are not yet in place.
Ms. Grock, did you have a comment about the survey responses?
So Mr. Valencia had asked how we incorporated the responses. I want to make it clear we don't just look at surveys, that we have qualitative and quantitative data. But one of the last pieces that fell into place before the final draft was the panorama survey of family, staff, and students. And we have a whole executive summary, but what I would share is our change in responses from the baseline a year ago and from the last survey window in winter were very tight. So nothing moved down more than 2 or 3 points or up more than 2 or 3 points, and nothing moved on the percentile national. So what we interpret that and how we apply that to the LCAP is to stay the course and keep doing what we're doing so that we can hope to see that impact over time. So we do incorporate those responses into the goals, and that'll be shared, I'm sure, through the board memo when it's ready as well.
One thing from Panorama that we did take away, although we probably didn't need Panorama, but it was overwhelming in the Panorama data in the second round, and then again in the third round, was the need for additional SEL supports for our students. A direct link to the LCAP was the elementary school counselor that we brought forward. And that's why the first time we mentioned that was at the last educational partner meeting, was to bring that up because it was really based on the amount of staff and families that had asked for that. And so that is an example of a direct link from the surveys into an LCAP item.
Ms. Dutra, I think that's great news that we have a counselor at elementary level. Do you know if we have a highly qualified counselor at each of our elementaries at this point?
So that position was brought up for the first time at the LCAP meeting and then discussed at this meeting, most recently at the last board meeting. We still need to develop the job description and then recruit and place that position. So at this point, that's our desire. Pending the board's approval of that action in service as a component of our LCAP, that would be our desire to get that job description approved and then recruit and place those folks at our elementary school. So they're not there yet, Mr. Valencia.
Any other questions? The end of my presentation. If you don't have any other questions or thoughts.
Thank you for everything. Derek, that means teaching my daughter in the second grade and all this.
There we go.
And from then to now,
Yeah.
you're amazing. Thank you so much for everything you've done.
Thank you.
You poured your heart and soul into this district, and it's very evident.
I'll begin with thank you also for your dedication and work, and move to approve the local control and accountability plan and California School Dashboard local indicators as presented.
I'll second.
Ms. Cordero moves, Ms. Flores second. Roll call.
Mrs. Cordero? Aye. Mr. Hollinshead,
Aye.
Mr. Valencia,
Aye.
Mrs. Flores,
Aye.
Mr. Lara.
Aye. Thank you, Ms. Herrick. And again, thank you from the bottom of all of our hearts, all that you have done for our district at the school site level and here at the district office. You just put your heart out and everything that you've done. Thank
Those
you
of
very
us who've
much.
been here have seen how incredibly much this whole process has grown. Overwhelmingly.
I remember the
I don't think you'll miss the intensity of all of this, but happy retirement. And again, thank you
Thank you.
very, very much.
Better news is that we do get one more item out of Ms. Herrick before she actually retires. So
Bless your heart.
consider this an encore. The applause brought her back to the podium.
Then she can ride her
Next item.
motorcycle off into the
Yeah,
sunset.
there you
So item C, approval of the school plan for student achievement for the 2022-23 academic school year. Ms. Dutra?
Again, thank you, Board President. Again, I'd like to thank our school sites and our school site councils for their thoughtful work in writing meaningful plans to meet the needs of their students. And just an additional thank you to Ms. Herrick and Ms. Serratis for creating a clear, supportive process for our sites to follow that really we received so many compliments and thank yous. They really did a great written process that was important for Ms. Herrick to have in place before she retired tomorrow. She still has one presentation in a day, but it was really important for her to get that into place. And so I know that was very much appreciated by our sites. And it also really helps to ensure that we're following all the proper processes. So thank you for that. And with that, Ms. Herrick.
All right. So the next item, I want to thank you, Ms. Dutra, again. And all of our 21 sites submitted their approved plans that were approved by their school site council, which includes their ELAC members. And just a quick reminder, the SIPSA plans detail site planned actions and proposed expenditures for state and federal supplemental allocations. They support positive student outcomes and directly align with our LCAP and our vision of student success. The SIPSAs support a cycle of continuous improvement. They are data-driven. They reflect any changes in the learning environment and were reviewed and approved by all school site councils. Each plan includes evidence-based strategies to meet school needs. These strategies will provide opportunities for students to meet state standards, strengthen the academic programs, and address the needs of all students in the school, particularly those that aren't meeting the state standard. I see one error in there. Ms. Cordero didn't catch. I'm like, oh.
But she did teach you well.
Yeah, but she didn't point it out.
Maybe, we'll see. So this is just an example, and these are just the cover of the school plans. And I know you've seen the cover of them, and all the plans, like I said, align with the LCAP. The format is a little bit different, but we do align the data and the goals. And all the plans meet the state and federal requirements, and they've done an excellent job working with their school site council and ELAC members. A lot of good communications with that, of involving their educational partners at the site level to write plans. I also want to remind the board that this includes state and federal funds, and so the school sites have their LCFF supplemental concentration grant funds and the Title I funds. So there's a lot of procedures and guidelines, and as you recall, we did have our FPM review, and the plans from this year went through that review. So some of the examples and of actions and services in the school plans that align with our LCAP goals. I'm just going through some of them, and again, this was something like hot off the press because the schools, once they have them signed and their budgets are approved and their actions are in the plans, it does come to our office, and I do want to thank the team in plan alignment because they have to really list every single thing and create the budgets and the books. And all of the team have been working, but Kelly and Tammy have just been working at it so that it would be ready for you this evening and to put all in one place. So you could see for goal 1, these are some of the services, supplemental education programs. A lot of the sites have achieved 3,000. Smarty Ants is a math program for our primary grade. Math manipulatives and Steve materials are included. Children's creative project for expanded learning. They have their own programs during the extended day, and also AVID. In goal 2, many of them have supplemental materials to support assessment tools. And goal 3, they have instructional leadership team meetings. So this is where they meet as teams, collaboration time, their PLC meetings, and then professional learning. Hopefully more can go to conferences. We had a lot of issues with not having a lot of substitutes this year. Sometimes they buy professional learning books and they have book studies. So this is where that is under goal 3. And then under goal 4, also professional learning and books to support multilingual learners. In goal 5, there are a lot of requests for more support for students. And I think this is one thing that continues to be a priority of our educational partner, including our certificated classified staff, parents, but additional support, additional counselors on campus, additional outreach mentors. And so I think most of our sites have an additional one or the other. We did have problems hiring all of our school-based therapists last year and our marriage and family therapist. We did have additional outreach mentors, but again, this year, a lot of them have additional, and that service is really needed on our campuses. For parent education, they have additional parent education. They work very close with Dr. Castillo-Schiffer and her department and making sure that they offer what parents are requesting, what is needed. Some of them are the Parent Institute for Quality Education, and that's changed over the years. Another one is the Factor program. Another one we started this year directly at the school sites is Rosetta Stone for parents, and that was really popular. We kind of started piloting it, and I really appreciate the support that our supplemental services department, the SQUACS department, really supported that. And the parents were able to take home Chrome notebooks so that they could do it in their time at home, the Rosetta Stone. And I think we'll be seeing this at a lot of our campuses this next year. So that was a great program, and a lot of work went on there. Also, they have a parent engagement events. So these are like wellness nights, family wellness nights, family science nights. And I know that next year they'll have a lot more. We did have some at the end of the school year. One really popular one was Zoo to You. And so there's some things that they add into their plan that are additional, that are for their specific school site needs. And then the last, culture and climate meetings, student supervision, professional learning, that has been very important for our school sites and supported for our students. Junior high elective courses, they have supplies for those for the junior high. Social emotional assemblies, different things that they do, positive reinforcement programs, and then of course their educational field trips. So you will see in the LCAP plan, we do have an action and service for educational field trips. And there is in the LCAP, and it's also in their school site plans. So there's different field trips that some of them do. They did do walking field trips at the end of the year. A lot of them had different ones that they went on. Not a lot, but there were some. And then again, busing was an issue all year. The action and service remained in the LCAP, and we did increase the service. So those are just some examples. They did a great job, and I really have to give credit to Michelle, because she really did work on the guidebook for our schools, for school site council and SIPSA meetings. And she really put a lot into that, and then did a lot of the training. When we were busy finishing the LCAP, that's where she was at with the principal teams. And so I just really appreciate that support. Any questions on those? A lot of information.
Ms. Herrick, you had mentioned that the things that are incorporated into the single plan for student achievement, that they're all evidence-based. And how do we ensure that that's the case, that we're using the latest and best research to guide this work?
When we went through our FPM, there is like a review that we have to show how it's evidence-based for supplemental programs, especially. And so we have put together a little like checklist so that they could go through the steps to check if programs are or services are evidence-based. And in general, we use the same type of checkoff list that we use for our federal program review for all of our state programs as well. So we really have done a better job at reviewing programs. That's a really good question, and a lot of work has been put into that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I know from, at least from when I was on site council at Miller, a lot of it was based on empirical data, which means, well, we think this is what works. So I think, it's come a long way since that kind of evidence was what we used as a means to drive where we spent our money. But there appears from here that there's still some of those good things that are being done to expand on what we already do.
And it has, it's a different process, and we have to do a needs assessment at each site. And it's also for English learner needs assessment, and then for all. And so this year, it was just very quality work. And the measuring and reporting tools that they're using within their school site plans, they align with the LCAP measuring and reporting tools for each school, but they also look at their own data that they have. And they have different things that they're looking at, but they also have to align their actions and service to their qualitative and quantitative data. And so those CNAs, we had them do those in the middle of the year. They kind of have an annual review, and we had them do it one time this year so that they could really look at the data and then kind of update it in the spring. But again, they're just getting their spring data as well. And so that's something to think about. And their plans are also fluid. So when we come back, if there's something that is needed, there's adjustments that could be made as long as their school site council and ELACs are involved.
I've forgotten, and you've told me, I know, but do the site councils and the ELACs typically meet together, or are they separate? Because that was kind of varied from campus to campus.
So
past.
Yeah, so now we have our school site councils and our ELAC members. You have to have two separate agendas, but all of them meet as a team, and they do have to vote to have that happen at the beginning of the year. And it has to be in their bylaws. And so that's something that really was reviewed by FPM this year. And all the schools are doing a great job. Yeah, and a lot of them, with the Zoom meetings, they hung in there, and it was a little bit of a challenge, but they did, they got those councils involved, and they did a good job. A lot of work for them. A lot of work.
Anybody have any questions or have a motion?
I'll move that the Board of Education approve the school plans for student achievement for the 2022-2023 academic school year as presented.
I second.
Ms. Cordero moves, Ms. Flores seconds. Roll call.
Mrs. Cordero? Aye. Mr. Hollinshead?
Aye.
Mr. Valencia?
Aye.
Mrs. Flores? Aye. Mr. Lara?
Aye, motion carries. Sutra.
So before we let Ms. Herrick sit down, we want to give her a small token, and we promised we wouldn't do anything, so I think a Post-it's fair. We want to thank Ms. Herrick for 26 years of service to Santa Maria Bonita as a teacher, as a site administrator, and as a district administrator. She's worked with some of you. She's been a teacher to some of your children. She's had a huge impact in our district, and she's really dedicated her life's work to Santa Maria Bonita and to the Santa Maria community. We thank her for her hard work, her professionalism, and her love of kids. We will all deeply miss you. We love you so much, and we appreciate the impact you've made on our students and our community. We're better for having worked with you.
Crying all the way. Okay.
Item D, adoption of the 2022-23 budget. Mr. Beecher. King.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lara. While Mr. King is making his way around, I'll just comment really quickly. As Ms. Herrick mentioned, this work is presented by Ms. Herrick, or in terms of the budget presented by Mr. King. But the work that goes into creating a budget is a wide range of folks in many departments and at school sites. And their attention to detail and their ability to prioritize their time to make sure that the information that flows through the system for Brian to share with you tonight, to make sure that it's accurate, many times goes unnoticed. But I just want the board to know there's many people. Our partners in the Human Resources Department, folks in plan alignment do a lot of the work. And then secretaries, office managers, the folks out in the departments all contribute to this document that we're sharing with you tonight. I just want to make sure that we recognize it is a huge team effort.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Beecher. Good evening, board. So our last board meeting, we had the public hearing for the adoption budget. So tonight we have an action item so we can adopt the 22-23 budget. So what we'll look at this evening, we'll look at STRS and PERS rates, revenues, expenditures, Form CEA, and then we'll wrap it up.
Is that Sanchez School?
Oh, yeah, it is.
Of the Lions? Okay.
So the governor and the legislature must reach an agreement on the state's 22-23 spending plan by June 30th. And if they don't, then the lawmakers do not get paid. The 45-day budget revision, I will be back in August with the 45-day budget revision. Basically, what's required is no later than 45 days after the governor signs the budget, school districts must make available for review any revisions to revenue and expenditures as a result of the past budget.
So does that mean that you get 44 days of vacation and then on day 45 you come back?
Oh, no, there's a lot to do in July.
It's just kidding.
So I want to talk a little bit more about our pension costs. So I did talk about STRS and PERS rates at our last board meeting, how they did change, they did go up. So what do these increases in STRS and PERS rates mean physically to the district? So when you make a small change to a percentage that is applied to a big number, the result is often a big number. So the change in the STRS rates from 16.92% to 19.10% is a change of 2.18%. However, when applying that rate to the large number of certificated salaries, the result is a much larger percentage increase in actual dollars that the district will be paying to STRS. That's what this shows here. So the impact of that 2.18% change in the STRS rate actually results in more than a 12% increase to total dollar costs absorbed for the district. So the actual increase for the district is 12.88%. It's not that 2.18%. And to come up with that, we took our 21-22 unrestricted certificate salaries amount, applied the STRS rate for 21-22. We came up with 13.5 million is the amount we will send and pay to STRS. For 22-23, so we can compare it, we use that same certificated salaries amount, apply the new rate, that's 15.3%. It's a dollar cost increase of 1.7%, and that's almost a 13% increase. The same logic does apply to PERS also. Moving on, money to support schools comes from many sources, which includes state revenue, federal revenue, and local revenue. The following is a summary of the major sources for 22-23 revenue based on the state budget. Sources of particular interest have been listed here. So with 92% of the district's funding coming from state sources, are dependent on the state budget is apparent. Look at expenditures. The district has substantial investment in personnel. Almost 70% of the general fund expenditures are for personnel, from classroom teachers to cafeteria workers. The district's invests heavily in the most valuable asset, its people. And the remaining 30% is spent on everything else: materials, textbooks, transportation, utilities, contracted outside services. I do have the slide here, and it breaks out unrestricted and restricted dollars and percentages. And for example, when you look at the LCFF revenue, $207 million of LCFF revenue is unrestricted, and that's makes up 98% of the total LCFF revenue of $211 million. So unrestricted funding from the general fund is largely provided through the state's local control funding formula, and this revenue is available for the district's general needs. General needs include certificated salaries, classified salaries, benefits, books and supplies, and a range of services like professional development and utility costs. The contributions section in the budget accounts for money that supports other programs within the budget, for example, special ed, and these funds are often also used for salaries. So in total, 76% of the revenue in the general fund is unrestricted. This money is committed to pay the bills necessary to keep the district's doors open each day. I did want to highlight a few things. Our books and supplies for unrestricted make up roughly about 50% of the total budget for books and supplies. The same can be said for services and other operating expenditures. And there I have 4 arrows for certificated salaries, classified salaries, and employee benefits. And the one down below that says contributions to cover salaries and benefits. Contributions from the general fund to cover salaries and benefits for employees that typically work in on the restricted side. So, for example, what's part of that number is, special education aids cost about $7.4 million, but we only receive about $3.4 million in federal SPED funding. So the unrestricted general fund must make up the difference of about $4 million. So another way to look at this, I was asked the question about unrestricted dollars at a last board meeting, and I mentioned roughly 90% of our salaries and benefits are paid with unrestricted dollars. I was pretty close. It's actually 88% when I actually dug into the numbers and looked at it. And then when you look at our unrestricted dollars for salaries and benefits and compare that to our unrestricted LCFF revenue. So our LCFF revenue of $207 million, 85% of those dollars are going to our unrestricted salaries and benefits. So moving on, forms CEA. So one of the SACS forms that I'd like to draw your attention to is this form CEA. I think I do bring this to you at this time every year, and also in September. This form is required to be completed by the district. So the calculation of the current expense of educational actuals, CEA, is a legal requirement and is used to determine the percentage of expenditures for the district classroom cost of teaching students. Included in the calculation are the salaries and benefits, of teachers and paraprofessionals, and that's measured against the total expenditures. And so for elementary school districts, we have the highest percentage that we need to meet, which is 60%. So how many districts failed to meet the requirement? It is a lot of districts, especially on the elementary side. So if you go back to right before LCFF came around in 2012-13, it was about 31%. And now as of 2021, half of the school districts don't meet this requirement. And this is the our percentages from every year since LCFF came around. So 1 out of the last 8 years we've met this requirement. So when I close the books in August for this fiscal year is when we'll know the exact percentage for our CEA form. I'm almost certain it's going to be below the 60%. So if that is the case, then we will apply with the county for an exemption. We do this every time we don't meet the requirement. We'll do that in September. And there's just a couple boxes to check for the reason why you're requesting the exemption. And the one we always check is payment of classroom teacher salaries are in excess of those paid by other comparable school districts. Then you do need to supply backup. And so this is the backup that I will supply. This information comes directly from, it's called the J90 report that's on the CD website. And we're comparing like kind, similar districts to ourselves that are similar to FTEs, ADAs, elementary school districts. So here I have 4 elementary school districts and 2 unified. You can see that our beginning salary, average salary, and maximum salary are greater than our comparable school districts. So with that, the board can issue a positive certification, the adoption budget that we give to the county office. And with that, I can answer any questions.
For another great year. It's a lot of work and time and.
Yeah. If such a high percentage of elementary districts do not meet that CEA requirement, why has that not been revisited?
It's an outdated form from, I don't know when it exactly started, but when LCFF came around, it really made it even more outdated because of supplemental concentration grant dollars. We get $60 million. A fair dollar amount of those go towards outside contracted services and things like that, which our students need. So also things like expanded learning opportunities program, $30 million. You're not spending all that on salaries. It's additional costs. So
I mean, if you look at our budget, if you just look at the total percentage that is spent for all of the employee costs, it,
of course,
as you pointed out, is about 70%.
Yes.
Yeah.
The form calculates itself. And so it goes in and only grabs, it doesn't grab all salary costs for like myself classified. I'm not in the classroom, so it doesn't grab my salary. So, or Mr. Beecher's salary. This form is for the cost of directly affecting the students in the classroom.
I think also, Ms. Cordero, one of the reasons why it doesn't change is that the workaround isn't a challenge. Of whatever the true numbers might be, we saw some percentages, but if you have 60% of your school districts are facing this challenge, and they can do a quick calculation and get an exception and move on, then you don't have to take on what could be a political challenge to talk about, let's change the laws to say you can spend less in the classroom. That's not a question I think anyone wants to, try and support an answer to. So we'll continue to do the best that we can, as every district does, to make sure that they focus their resources on that most important priority. But I don't think anyone wants to take that on politically.
So just as an example, the counselors and those type of people are not included. And yet across the country, the emphasis has been on providing more and more of those services. So we're basically being dinged, if you will. I mean, you have to, I guess there's not a negative consequence. There's only additional paperwork that you have to do to justify that. But at some point, that could become a negative issue.
Well, I think for districts, when they enter it the first time, right? That if they're on the cusp and they're able to find ways to make the numbers work. But for a school district like ours, who has had to request an exemption for so long, it's not as big of a conversation. But that first year or two, it really could be. But you are correct that a lot of the funding that's coming now is stuff that all occurs around the classroom. And
even at that, I mean, if you were to technically consider that, that is a direct service for students, but you don't calculate the books and supplies or the technology that we're putting in their hands, or all of the stuff that you have to do to make that continue to happen. That just seems out of sync.
yes, and while we might not want to have this conversation at every budget adoption, because it doesn't have a good ring to it. You don't meet the minimum classroom expenditure requirement. We always do want to have this conversation to inform you of how it occurs, how common it is, and then what the workaround is, so that you're aware, the board is aware that it isn't uncommon if it comes up in conversation.
Yes.
Mr. King, would you mind going back to I think it's the second to last slide? I believe it was a slide looking at the competitiveness of our teacher salaries relative to neighboring districts. Is that correct?
Like districts.
It's actually like this.
Excellent. To like districts. I just wanted to take a moment to take a look at that, because it moved very quickly.
And the requirement is to look at FTEs, ADA, and if possible, like elementary school districts.
And so is this data suggesting that we are competitive relative to like districts? Are we sort of under? Are we over? Are we in the middle? Where are we at? Median?
I'll respond. This is actually a requirement to test whether or not the district can get an exemption from the minimum classroom expenditure requirement. Because if you can show that compared to like districts, the average teacher salaries or the provisions that Mr. King is showing here, if you can show that compensation is higher than other districts of like kind, then your exemption can be approved. If it had a different outcome, then the county would have to look at other things or potentially not approve your request for an exemption. So that, I don't want to misstate the purpose of this information shared with the board tonight. It is about demonstrating that the compensation for our teachers relative to these other districts is higher. And so we are, I read into, we are investing appropriately in our teachers.
Thank you very much for putting that up, Mr. King. Appreciate it.
Motion, any other questions?
Make a motion that the Board of Education certify to the Santa Barbara County Superintendent of Schools and the State Department of Education that the budget was reviewed in accordance with state adopted standards as reported on state certification, and adopt 2022-23 budget as presented.
And I'll second.
Ms. Flores moves, Ms. Cordero second, roll call.
Mrs. Cordero?
Aye.
Mr. Hollingshead?
Aye.
Mr. Valencia?
Aye.
Mrs. Flores?
Aye.
Mr. Lara?
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Item 7E, Mr. Hollingshead. Irrigation and field improvements at Fessler Junior High.
Get those gopher
Mr.
holes
Beecher.
filled.
Anochi amendment?
Definitely.
Thank you, Mr. Lara. We do have Patricia McKnight, Javier Cavazos, available to the board tonight to share the outcomes of this bidding process and then request your consideration and approval to enter into a contract to execute this project.
Good evening, board members, Interim Superintendent Mr. Beecher and Cabinet. The scope of work for this project includes installing a new irrigation system, installing a new water connection with the city, and leveling and reseeding the field. The plans and specifications were prepared by Oasis Associates. A notice calling for bids was advertised and posted on the district's online bidding platform. Mandatory job walk was attended by 6 prospective bidders, and 3 bids were received and opened on June 14th. MD Construction of Santa Maria submitted the lowest responsible bid in the amount of $744,023.12. MD Construction's bid meets all of the requirements outlined in the bid specifications, and staff recommends bid 5229 be awarded to MD Construction upon presentation of bonds and execution of the required contract documents.
So those tie into the city?
Good evening. Yeah, we're going to have a new connection for just strictly irrigation.
Yeah.
It'll be at, I believe, drawing a blank here, but I think it's Chapel Street on the south side of Fessler.
Yeah.
That's where we'll have a new connection for strictly irrigation water for strictly the playfield.
And that'll get all tore out and they're gonna laser it, or they're gonna go
The connection or the field?
the field?
Yes, the field's going to be motor graded, and so we'll have a big pulverizer out there that's going to go through 2 feet deep and pulverize
Kill
the
the
ground.
gophers
What's that?
and kill the gophers
Yes,
while you're at
that's
it.
what we're hoping for. We'll also be treating it before that happens to try to get rid of all the gophers as much as possible. And then we'll come back with the motor grader and grade it. And then we'll be installing new irrigation to make sure that we have coverage across the entire field.
And the timeline?
Yeah.
So we are, if approved, we're scheduled to meet with the contractor tomorrow. We hope to start the project on Monday, June 27th. It is a 60-day project to get the irrigation, the field seeded, the connection. There's some fence work also. So we're hoping to have construction completed around August. And then we have a 120-day maintenance period on the field itself and the grass. So they'll be coming back. The contractor will be coming back to tend to the field, to mow it, to make sure that when they turn it over to us, it's 100%.
So January or February, it'll be usable.
If the weather is good, I think we will have good results. We recently seeded Adam, and so that's another playfield project that we're in the process of. We seeded that on June 7th, and we hope to have the first cut sometime early July. So it just depends on the weather and the grass, how quickly it grows. We want to make sure that we have a healthy root system before we turn anybody on top of the field.
Right, you did, Adam. Did the baseball diamond get put back in?
For which site?
Adam?
Working with the principal to see what she envisions for that.
That site was done as well.
Yes.
I have to go take a look at it.
You're not cutting in any kind of a track or anything on there, are you?
No, this is just grass.
Okay.
No track, nothing else will be out there.
Did they even think about putting, or is it just too big to put a track? Because that's a large.
The staff, I think, requested that they not have it because
Oh.
they the way that the PE staff uses it, maximum use of their field space for their different.
Cutting it
Yeah,
up.
'cause they got
for
one of the
different places, yeah.
biggest, it'll be beautiful. Gotcha. That makes sense.
I think there's 6 PE teachers there, so they have a lot of territory that they have to share. Thank you.
Welcome.
Foundation?
Go for it.
I gotta
We'll
open
give you
I
a
gotta open up
turn.
my book and everything.
We thought we'd give you a turn.
Oh, that's so nice of you.
I know.
All right, I move to approve the award of contract bid for number 5229 irrigation and field improvement at Fessler Junior High School to MD Construction Company Incorporated in the amount of $742,023.12 upon presentation of bonds as presented.
And I'll second.
Mr. Hollingshead moves, Ms. Cordero seconds, roll call.
Mrs. Cordero? Aye. Mr. Hollingshead?
Aye.
Mr. Valencia?
Aye.
Mrs. Flores? Aye. Mr. Lara?
Aye, motion carries. Thank you. Good luck, guys.
Very much.
Discussion item 8A, overview of Universal Transition Kindergarten Plan. Ms. Dutra.
We are incredibly excited to bring this plan forward to you tonight, as the investment of additional time for our earliest learners is a game changer for our system and for our community. I want to thank Ms. Loftus and team for their hard work and dedication in this enormous new body of work that touches many departments and touches years to come. So with that, we will start with the overview.
Thank you, Ms. Dutra. Good evening, everyone. This evening, I will share an overview of our Universal Transitional Kindergarten Plan. And as you will quickly see, it really encompasses much more than just transitional kindergarten. I want to start by saying that the majority of my time this evening, I will really speak more to the programmatic aspects or from that programmatic perspective. And I will also provide some insight into the work that requires a strong partnership with human resources, as well as work that overlaps and requires a partnership with maintenance and operations, really looking at facilities. We know that as we work toward implementing our plan, what happens in HR and our ability to staff our programs adequately may result in adjustments to our plan. And of course, we also now know that our facilities are very limited, and our ability to respond to that need may also require some adjustments to our plan. So like any good plan, there will always be adjustments along the way. UTK, or Universal Transitional Kindergarten, is part of several large bodies of work. For several years, we've had the goal here in SMBSD, and we've had the goal here in California to provide all 4-year-olds with high quality learning experiences, or a high quality preschool experience. Preschool providers can include districts like ourselves. It can include private centers or Head Start centers. And it also includes a transitional kindergarten program that is offered to students who just barely meet that cutoff for kindergarten eligibility. These are all experiences that serve 4-year-olds. And when we talk about universal transitional kindergarten, it's just one of many ways that we meet that universal pre-kindergarten plan that has been a goal of the state. What we do know is that all of these various offerings that I'm speaking to have not yet been able to ensure that every 4-year-old has access to high quality preschool. And that is essentially the reason why we are here today with the transitions that are required through Senate Bill or Assembly Bill 130, requiring that we offer transitional kindergarten to all 4-year-olds as part of the K-12 public or TK-12 public school system. The list that I just provided, Head Start, private daycare centers, state preschool programs, those programs don't go away. They continue to exist in a world that has transitional kindergarten. And I also want to just take a moment to make the connection between universal transitional kindergarten and other major bodies of work really clear, because you might have heard of things like P3, which is pre-K through 3rd grade, an initiative that is really calls for comprehensive alignment of our educational system for our students and for our parents, all in service of reading by 3rd grade, ensuring that our students are reading at or above grade level by the time they meet 3rd grade, which is ultimately our target. And then preceding P3 and reading by third initiatives is also B3, which is birth to third grade. I'm sorry, birth to 3 years of age. And so while not a focus of this presentation tonight, B3 is an area that is also impacted by the work that we're going to be doing in order to meet the requirements of universal transitional kindergarten. So you'll hear a little bit about that this evening and of course in the future. So why are we here tonight talking about UTK? It really all starts with Assembly Bill 130. And Assembly Bill 130 has requirements for both the regular school day for TK as well as for expanded learning opportunities that provide a parent with a full day of care, a full day of learning, which is called out in Assembly Bill 130 as a 9-hour learning day. While there are many layers to AB 130, you can pretty much sum up the gist of it with the statement that you see on the left-hand side of the screen. And that is that LEAs must develop a plan for access to a full day of learning the year before kindergarten that meets the needs of parents. The plan must be shared with the governing board or a body at a public meeting on or before June 30th. And for Santa Maria, this particular body of work is a little bit more challenging than it is in maybe some other places across the state. What we know is that 81% of the schools in California offer full day kindergarten programs now. And when we think about offering a full 9-hour learning day to our students starting the year before kindergarten, which would be transitional kindergarten, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to do that then and then back off to a part day kindergarten program. And so when we are talking this evening and as we're moving forward with our UTK work, we have to have two paths really going in our mind at all times. One is implementing TK for all 4-year-olds and that extended day, that 9-hour learning day, but also how are we transitioning what we do in our kindergarten programs to also offer a full day of kindergarten. The plan that we are sharing with you this evening and that is required that we submit to the state has 5 different components. There is the vision and coherence section, the community engagement and partnerships component, workforce recruitment and professional learning, curriculum, instruction and assessment, and then of course the facilities, services, and operations. Again, I just want to say that this is a plan that really has many moving parts and requires partnership with pretty much everyone across the district, both in our district and outside of our district, as you will see as we go throughout the presentation this evening. We will go through each one of these different elements of the plan, and at the end of each one, I'll pause for a moment just to allow you an opportunity to give your thoughts, maybe ask any questions or just share anything that you'd like to share. So let's start with the first component, which is the vision and coherence section of the plan. We really are very clear on our vision for student success in SMBSD, and this has really allowed us to focus our efforts in the districts and is aligned with our vision, right? This work that I'm talking about with UTK is in alignment with this vision, specifically the implementation of all of the early learning programs that will come from it. Providing our students with high quality pre-K has always been a goal because we believe in the power of early education. Ensuring our students begin their educational journey with the best start is our goal as we continue to ensure that our students learn at grade level and beyond. And we're really proud of the culture of learning in our district, and the work I share tonight really is to continue to focus on what matters most, and that's our students and their opportunities to really tackle relevant, challenging content every single day. So let's start with the model of service delivery. When we look at the information in Senate Bill or Assembly Bill 130, one of the things that we have to do is look at our student to adult ratio. The bill requires that we provide an adult to student ratio of 1 to 12. Our pre-K program, as you know, has a ratio of 1:8. So it's just slightly higher than that. This simple shift in student to adult ratio requires us to think a little bit differently about our TKK combos that we've had in the past. In order to meet that ratio and take as much advantage of all space that we have available to us, it really requires us to shift away from having those combos. The benefit of that is that the curriculum that is intended, the learning experience that is intended for students in a TK program is really specialized and should not and does not necessarily blend as well with kindergarten as we would like it to do so. So this gives us a nice opportunity to really build out a classroom experience that is unique to our youngest learners. We also know that there is the goal, the intention that adult to student ratio decrease to 1:10. And if that were to occur, it would occur as soon as the 23-24 school year. And that really is pending legislative appropriation. The goal, the idea, the belief is there. It's whether or not the funding will be attached to that and whether or not we will be able to, in fact, provide staffing at that level as well. When we think about when we think about SMBSD and our model of service delivery, we really will have two phases that are going on. The first phase is looking toward how we are going to provide TK, half-day TK, if you will, to all of our 4-year-olds. The state requires a structure that requires that by no later than 25-26, all 4-year-olds must be offered that transitional kindergarten program experience. And so for us, when we look into our next school year, we are adding on the additional 2 months of eligibility that is required. So we'll have a small amount of 4-year-olds who are now eligible to attend TK who were not eligible before. In the following school year, 23-24, the intent is to expand what we offer to all students who are 4 years old on or before September 1st. And that is a plan, that is a goal. It's one that may need to be adjusted as we get closer to that target date. We know that we also have to be really thinking carefully about our facilities options, and we'll be needing to prioritize first ensuring we have a spot for all 4-year-olds to have that TK experience. And also, how are we moving toward full day kindergarten? Simultaneously, we'll also be looking for opportunities to move to full day transitional kindergarten. So if we were to prioritize that, it would be first TK for all students who are eligible, then full day kindergarten, and then we're able full day transitional kindergarten. This image really presents the same information just in a simple view. Again, we'll start with TK for all 4-year-olds, expanding the first few months in our next school year, and then hopefully capturing the rest of our 4-year-olds the following year. And then we will be also working on full day kindergarten and then full day transitional kindergarten. In this table, you can see in a little bit more detail what that looks like. As I shared already, expanding just those additional months, September 2nd through February 2nd, those eligibility months, and considering for our next school year, where do we have the space to provide full day kindergarten, and where do we have the space and the interest in providing full day transitional kindergarten? As we look into the next school year, the 23-24 school year, we'll be again looking to expand to all 4-year-olds. We'll be looking at each school site's capacity to expand kindergarten to full day. Another major body of work that we'll touch on this evening will be our facilities master plan development that will take course under Mr. Beecher's direction over the course of the next school year as we really dig in and look for what our plan will be to address all of the needs that we'll be talking about. And we'll also be really looking next year to consider how we can partner with community agencies, specifically with regard to our state preschool funding. Our state preschool funding has been used historically to provide services to 4-year-olds. If we're providing services in transitional kindergarten to 4-year-olds, it allows us to think differently about our state preschool dollars and consider expanding to our 3-year-old population in our community. We know that we don't have the facilities necessarily to do that for our 3-year-olds, but we know that there are community agencies and others who might have an interest in working with us to do so. And so that will be a major body of work next year as we work with community agencies and local partners to see what options are out there that we can explore. As we move forward into 24, 25, 25, 26, 26, 27 and beyond, it's really going to be a year by year, site by site decision that is made based on what the facilities will allow for. With the ultimate goal being that, again, all of our kindergartners are offered that full learning day, and all of our transitional kindergartners are offered that full learning day, and then the expanded learning opportunities that are coupled with it to make that 9-hour learning day become an option for parents is ultimately available. What we often talk about and really have really grappled with is we have to really start at a place of inequity to get to equity. And we recognize that we cannot provide what we want for all students right away, and that it will be something that we transition toward. Not necessarily something that we're happy with, but the reality of all of the transitions that we're trying to make. Yes.
That vein, and just real briefly, we're going 23, 24, we're going to all 4-year-olds. I thought that the state gave us that year to go to April, or to make it so that there was a slower or a longer transition over 3 years. Is there a reason that we're going straight to the 4-year-olds?
Yes, thank you for asking that clarifying question. As I mentioned earlier, there is that scaffolded implementation that requires all by 25, 26, but does allow you to expand each year by 2 months until you get to that goal in 25, 26. When we look at implementing it in that scaled out year by year version, we run into a facilities challenge because we're using that space for pre-K. And in order to open up those classrooms, you would have to take away pre-K offerings, which would mean we're taking away services to 4-year-olds who currently have program services in our district now. And we don't want to take something away and not have something to put in its place.
So rather than giving us more time, it's actually encroaching on our capacity to do the right thing.
Absolutely.
I see. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Good question. We're really excited to share that we did have some early adopters going into the next school year. You already know that Arianes Elementary School has had full day kindergarten for a few years, but joining Arianes next year with full day kindergarten is Miller Elementary. And both Arianes and Miller Elementary will offer full day transitional kindergarten as well. And then we have 2 additional school sites joining us with full day kindergarten, and that's Adam Elementary and Bonita Elementary. The teachers at these particular sites had a real sincere desire to move forward as soon as possible with implementation. They worked with their site leadership teams and really looked at their staffing and their facility availability, and they were in fact able to make it happen and show that they could sustain it. Even though quarters get tight, but going out to 25, 26, they actually did have the space to do what they're doing. Now, they don't necessarily all have the space to also do full day transitional kindergarten. Bonita would be an example of that. They have just enough space to offer transitional kindergarten to all 4-year-olds and do full day kindergarten, but they're short a classroom to do also full day transitional kindergarten. So again, everything is always going to come back to facilities and what we have available and how quickly we can create space. As we look forward to implement our plan, another area of deep discussion is the pre-K program. And what we know, and this is what we just spoke to, is that we do not have the facilities availability to actually provide the option of preschool or transitional kindergarten. We have to really offer one program for our 4-year-olds, and we know that transitional kindergarten is the required program moving forward. And so we have to really have some hard conversations and look at also what can we do, because we also don't want to give away the resources that the state gives us to support our youngest learners. So again, when we look at next school year, pre-K looks exactly like it looks like right now. Any student who is not eligible for TK is eligible then for preschool, and they will have that opportunity, with the exception of Arianas Elementary, where they've opened it up to not just full-day transitional kindergarten, but for all 4-year-olds. They are simply absorbing pre-K into their TK next year, and that includes the pre-K teachers who will stay with that site in that program during this transition year. And then
They already have those specialized qualifications because they've been doing that.
yes, sir. They do. And the teachers who have transitioned into the TK classroom also have the early childhood units that they are required to have. That requirement is actually in effect starting in August of 2023 moving forward. So we do have a little bit of time to meet those additional requirements, and I'll touch on that in just a moment as well. What I mentioned or I alluded to before was our desire to keep our state preschool funding in our community. And so I will touch on this again a little bit later, but our goal is to outsource that in our community in some fashion. We have put out a request for proposal. Mrs. McKnight has actually just recently done that, looking for parties who might be interested in supporting our youngest learners, or TK and kindergarten students during that other half of day in expanded learning. And the request is to look for what agencies might be interested in doing that, picking a student up who's in an AM TK program or an AM kindergarten program and providing those extra services during that second half of the day. And we have had some interest from YMCA and also KinderCare, who you might be familiar with. They're across the country and definitely across the state, but different entities are interested in partnering possibly with the district in expanding some learning opportunities for our students, and could potentially become partners in the future with regard to our CSPP funds.
What is in your paragraph there, ELO-P?
That would be the early learning program.
Okay.
So when we think about that expanded learning day of 9 hours,
okay,
it's regular school day coupled with
I figured the California State Preschool Program for the CSPP, but
oh, sorry, I misspoke. I knew that in my head. I don't know what came out of my mouth. Thank you, Lori. Yeah, I'll pause for just a moment before we go on to the next component or the next section of the plan.
And I have you are screen sharing at the bottom. That last may require discontinuing the
CSPP pre-K program. So what we're saying is that
I thought that's what it said, but
hopefully we are able to partner and find other opportunities that don't require that.
a lot of people that we have to put into play.
Yes, it is. I'll share some numbers with you in just a moment.
Wow.
I don't know if the battery just died. We're good now. Okay. Getting to this point in the process that I've shared so far has really been possible because we have been receiving quite a bit of feedback from our community partners in a variety of different ways. When we think back to last year, we worked very carefully with the parents of our pre-K students and with those of children who were in the 2 to 3 year range to gather their input about what they would like to see in a pre-K program. And that was really part of the work that we did to apply for a grant to expand our pre-K program before we knew of anything happening with UTK. One of the key pieces of input that those parents gave over and over and over again was a desire for a full day program. And so that certainly has played into our thinking for how we move forward with our design. I also shared with you at the last board meeting the annual pre-K self-assessment survey where parents once again indicated an interest or a desire for expanded learning programs, for somehow lengthening that day to a full day of learning, and many also shared needing that supplemental care before or after school. We also asked that all school sites meet and discuss the topic of universal transitional kindergarten and the expanded learning programs with their school site councils and their ELAC committees, and each school site submitted input from those different teams, ranging from desire for what would a program look like at your school? Would you like to see it before school, after school, both? What kinds of opportunities would you like students to have in expanded learning? What do you think about full day transitional kindergarten, full day kindergarten? What do you think that should look like? All kinds of input was given there. They were also asked to seek input directly from their staff, both certificated and classified. We also have a TKK teacher advisory team that met multiple times this year, and this happened to be a topic of conversation at a great number of those meetings. We also were able to share this information at our DLAC meeting, gathering input there, and again at LCAP input sessions earlier this year. Our Director of Special Education also has worked with the Santa Barbara County Special Education Local Plan Area, SELPA, and thinking about what this means to serving students with disabilities in our TK programs moving forward. And of course, we've had a lot of input from those early adopters that I mentioned just a moment ago, specifically around what kinds of resources do you need in your classroom in order to implement a full day program for TK or for kindergarten? What kind of professional learning might you need? What would that look like? So all of these different groups have been able to weigh in and provide voice to needs and desires specific to how we're meeting the needs of our earliest learners, and also how we're meeting the needs of that 9-hour learning day for all students starting the year before kindergarten. As we look to implement that 9-hour learning day in a manner that meets the needs of our families, we do know that that's going to require a multitude of community partnerships. This is not something we can do on our own, for certain. For our full day TK or K students, or for those kindergarten or TK students who are in a PM program, they will be able to take advantage starting next year of possibly ACES and then other expanded learning opportunities at their site. Well, not all of these will meet that full 9-hour requirement necessarily. It is a starting point in our plan that we are working from. It gets a little more complicated when you think about how do you meet that full 9-hour day for students who are in a half-day TK program or a half-day K program, specifically in the morning. Come to school, where do you go between when school ends and when after-school opportunities might begin? We know that we do have a couple of partners in our community with Los Adaves, and they are able to support the needs of children that are in their residential community, but we have to look much further beyond, knowing that we can't necessarily build in this care on our school sites during the school day as needed. What might that look like? Again, that's that request for bid process that we did start and have had a few show some interest in. More information will be coming about from that as we get closer to having more information there, but it is our goal to be able to offer at least to some students the opportunity for that expanded learning care as early as next year. I mentioned earlier the desire to transition our district state preschool funding in a manner that keeps the resources in our community and supports our 3-year-old pre-K program. This body of work follows under that umbrella of really that B3 or birth to 3 work that I mentioned earlier. And what we know is that with this great opportunity, we would really be remiss if we did not explore and partner with our community and building programs for our earliest learners, for our 3-year-olds, and really look to see how we can partner with also those supporting birth to age 3. And this fall, we will begin the process of engaging with our local partner organizations, looking throughout Santa Barbara County specifically, and coming together as a large task force. And at that time, we'll present what our plan is, our draft plan for UTK, and also talk about our goals, our wishes, our dreams for how we would like to support our birth through 3 community, how we would like to build out that 3-year-old pre-K experience in our community, and really put all of our heads together to think about how we might make this dream come to a reality. In the meantime, we'll continue to build out expanded learning opportunities. We'll continue to take full advantage of our ACES framework as well, the resources we have on school sites now, and look to support as many of our students in that 9-hour learning day as possible. And while ACES has not been previously available to students in kindergarten or certainly even transitional kindergarten, it is something that we are talking about now, if we have parents who are interested in that additional care. So before I move into the next component, which is really looking at workforce recruitment and training, are there any questions or is there any type of input you'd like to provide around community partnerships?
I do have a question. My question is, how do we evaluate the effectiveness of some of these community partnerships? I see a lot of great organizations that we work with, Boys and Girls Club, People's Self-Help Housing, YMCA, ACES, but how do we ensure that if we're going to be contracting out some of these services, that they're as effective or better, even potentially than what we offer? How do we evaluate them to ensure that the services are excellent?
One of the items that is written into that process, that request for proposal process, is in fact assurances that allow us to not only visit and inspect, but also to conduct quality review. It allows us to really talk about what our outcomes are for those different agencies and then determine on the front end how we'll be measuring those as well. So there's a good list of checks and balances there to ensure that whoever we decide, if we decide to move forward with a partnership such as one of these, that we have that ability to keep a handle on what's happening and influence that as well. Thank you. So as you can imagine, none of what I've shared happens without appropriate staffing. And this next section is really talking about how the Department of Teaching and Learning is partnering with human resources in order to ensure we have the most qualified staff available. I'll start with just a reminder of the staffing needs and how we determine those. We start by looking at the ratio that is required, that 1 adult for every 12 students. And in our system, we were looking at a teacher, a credentialed teacher, and then also a full-time bilingual instructional assistant. So those 2 individuals would be able to support 24 students. Again, we know that could change. Requirements could become 1 to 10. And if that does happen, then of course our need for staffing would increase. So as we look at this slide, what I'd like to provide is just a projection on approximately how many additional transitional kindergarten teachers would be needed over the course of the next couple of years. We know that the 2-month expansion that we instituted for next school year required the additional 12 transitional kindergarten teachers. Moving forward with offering transitional kindergarten to all 4-year-olds in the 22-23 school year would require 25 additional TK teachers. If the ratio were to change and become 1-10, the need would then be what you see in parentheses, which is 30 additional teachers. Moving forward to 23-24, there would be a need for 62 additional teachers, and if that ratio were to change to 1-10, it would be 74. We've already started this work. We have transitioned already all of our interested TK bilingual instructional assistants to full-time. We've also started doing that for our kindergarten bilingual instructional assistants, starting first with those programs that are full day. And we have met the criteria there so that all TK classrooms have a full-time bilingual instructional assistant starting next year, as do all kindergarten classrooms that are full-time. We'll continue next year in transitioning more of our kindergarten instructional assistants to full-time, and then as we move forward, then looking at our first grade bilingual instructional assistants as well. We've also done quite a bit of work with our teacher development pipeline. At past board meetings, we have shared some of this information about our efforts to really build that robust teacher pipeline. And these efforts are really going to be critical in meeting the demand of filling the need for teachers. And just as importantly, I think, is also ensuring a really diverse workforce. Specifically, that pathway to teaching component of our pipeline will be particularly important as we look to staff our universal transitional kindergarten programs. We're excited that the expansion of the TK programming in our district really does open doors for many of our classified staff members who aspire to become teachers. And our teacher development pipeline is built on the concept of growing our own, as you know, and we're already working with many of our classified employees, specifically our bilingual instructional assistants, our pre-K teachers who are not yet fully credentialed teachers. We even have a custodian who always kind of thought he might want to be a teacher, and now he has been inspired by all of what he's hearing becoming available for supports, and he has shown his interest as well. And we're hoping to remove the barriers and move those individuals along so that they are on their pathway to becoming teachers. And we know that there's no one size fits all. Some of our pre-K teachers, like I said, they have a bachelor's degree, but they don't have the credential yet, or they have an associate's degree and still need the bachelor's degree and the credential. Everybody's in a slightly different place. And so we've designed out different opportunities to support you regardless of where you might be on your journey. The teacher development team has also applied for multiple grants. This information was previously shared, but I bring it forth tonight so that you can see the clear connection of the efforts of the team to capture any and all potential funding sources in order to remove barriers and to clear that pathway, if you will, for those who are interested in teaching in our district. The column that's blown out on the left, and that far left, demonstrates, or it lists the grants that we have applied for so far. Anything that's become available that we're remotely eligible for, we have applied for it. And then if you look toward the center, the area that's circled, you can see the intention of each of the different grant applications that we've submitted. If successful and we're able to receive, be awarded, if you will, these various grants, we will be able to not only cover the cost of tuition for those in our residency programs, but also possibly provide them a stipend, a living stipend during the time they're in a residency. So very excited about that. Other grants are specific to meeting the extra early childhood education units that are required to be a TK teacher starting in school year 2023. And so we've written a grant to cover that expense, and we've also developed 2 different pathway opportunities with Ellen Hancock College. One that allows teachers to clear those requirements over a summer experience, and then another that allows it to be spread out over time. Either way, if successful in receiving the grant, we'll be able to remove that financial barrier for those who are seeking to be TK teachers.
Is there somewhere in there not only opportunity for the teachers, but you were talking about the bilingual instructional aides do they have to have then maybe not a comparable level of qualification for UTK, or for TK, but do they also have to have some kind of specialized in instruction or coursework?
To remain an instructional assistant in the TK program, or not necessarily. We are encouraged to provide professional development, right? That would ensure that our instructional assistants are highly qualified. And there is no requirement from the state that they have X, Y, and Z in order to teach in a TK program.
So we can aspire to that, though, to set a level of our own.
We have already, and we will continue to expand upon it.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Opportunity for a current classified employee.
Yeah.
So that could be motivation to go in and get those.
Well, I'm just talking about the people that are BIAs right now, and I wasn't clear that they had to, teachers have to have a specialized preparation, and I want to make sure of that. And the other question I had was, this is a little bit off topic, but related, I guess, with the CalU students. How do we get them to be provide a residency? Or is it here? Do we get them housing with a family, or do we get them housing here? How does that work if they're way down in Thousand Oaks?
So, interesting question. Currently, we have the partnership that we're building out with CalU has the room for, I believe, up to 30 participants in any given year, right? And what they're looking at doing is providing currently in this partnership a credential pathway. So you have a bachelor's degree, but you need a credential. And that residency program will provide that experience. Now, those who we have sought information from to seek interest have been our classified folks, primarily our bilingual instructional assistants who already live in our community. And we've had such a large level of interest. It's actually really exciting. Within minutes of sending out the survey, Ms. Hart had nearly 100 respondents, and well over half of them have bachelor's degrees, but they don't have a credential. So this program would be really ideal for them, and we're bringing the experience here, making sure that it's in the evening hours so that they don't have to give up their day job necessarily, or if they're able to work in an internship capacity, there's a little bit of opportunity there too. So it all just sort of depends on our situation, their situation, and aligning everything. But that's been the focus of really that pipeline work that Shelley has been leading. It's very exciting.
CalU and Laverne and those schools have the mobility to take their program elsewhere, like how Patty has done the admin with CalU with a cohort here. So I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
We actually aspire to the following year potentially offer a bachelor's program as well here in the community in partnership with CalU.
Well, and they described some of it as online and only a few weekends where you would go down to attend. So,
and we've talked about that, like different hybrid models, and also ensuring that we provide the right support that's needed to successfully complete a really rigorous program that also includes bilingualism. It includes, multiple other things that we really aspire to have to ensure it's that we have the right people here in Santa Maria serving our students. And so having classes in person is important, at least on the front end, making sure that you offer all kinds of supports to help people work a full-time job plus get through the rigorous schooling that they'll need in order to complete that credentialing piece in an expedited way. So it can absolutely grow to be online and in person in some hybrid model, but we don't want to just exclusively offer online, at least not at the beginning. We also know that many of our staff members will be the teachers in this program. They'll work with CALU to receive specialized training, and then we'll actually be providing the instructors of the program here in the district. So it's really exciting.
This will be pretty powerful. Really powerful.
It's all very, very exciting, and everything is coming together almost as though it were meant to be. We started this journey. This teacher started this journey with the teacher development pipeline well before we knew of all of the demands of UTK. And being at the place where we are at this point in this process is we're very thankful for that, because it's going to allow us to hopefully meet the demands of staffing our full day transitional kindergarten programs.
Sounds like a future CSBA presentation to me.
Yeah, that and what is old is new again.
Right.
Because this is the way I got a credential. I did an intern program, so to speak, during summers. I was giving stipends so that you could continue your career in college. Yeah, that's why I say Minicore did a huge program like that for years and years. And Teacher Corps, I think, too.
We need teachers.
We do.
We do. And so we're aggressively looking at ways to ensure that we have the teachers that we need, and really working very hard to ensure that we are growing our own. We have such a strong foundation to work with, and this work will eventually dip down into what we do with CTE work with our high school as well, and how we partner with our high school and Allen Hancock and other agencies to get those students who are interested in going into education in high school.
Definitely.
Right? It's many different things going on that are all coming together very nicely.
Well, and we're not the only ones who need teachers.
We are not.
So
California,
I think that's
everyone.
Yes.
even bigger deal.
We're mostly concerned about ourselves, making sure that we have it.
Yeah.
And we're okay with that. As I did mention, we have designed experiences with Allen Hancock to meet those additional early childhood units that are needed. We have TK teachers currently that need those additional units, and we have others who are interested in teaching transitional kindergarten and are excited about that and will need those additional units. And so we'll have opportunities that we share with them. And our goal, if we are successful, is to remove that financial barrier for any who are interested.
Spoke to us.
Somebody did, I don't know. The battery's getting tired. For our leaders and, oops, not quite there yet. Okay. What I also wanted to share is that the induction program that we're developing we've looked at this in a very proactive way and ensured that we are designing really robust support for our teachers, our new teachers who come in to teach either TK or our full day kindergarten programs. And so knowing that all of this is happening, we've been able to really thoughtfully plan for that as well. The professional learning that we'll provide during our induction program is for those teachers who are newest, right, that need to clear their credential, but we also want to make sure that we're supporting our leaders and our current transitional kindergarten teachers, especially as they start to transition from being a half-day TK teacher to a full-day TK teacher, right? Mm-hmm. And so moving forward, we'll be sure that we're offering many opportunities, not just next year, but just moving forward. Part of our design is really thinking about the preschool learning foundations and frameworks and how we support literacy and language development in our TK classrooms. Also looking at developing math and science skills, also really mindful of the preschool learning foundations and the California preschool curriculum framework. Social and emotional development is a critical component in an early childhood program. So we'll be definitely ensuring that we provide experiences and resources in that arena. We want to be mindful of implicit bias and ensure culturally and linguistic practices are in place in all of our classrooms and that they are developmentally appropriately informed. We know that our TK classrooms will be inclusive settings, and we want to be sure that we partner with our Office of Special Education to ensure that we are providing learning experiences for our teachers and how to meet the needs of children with various abilities. We also want to ensure that we're on the cutting edge of what does structured play look like in a TK classroom, and how do you really ensure that that play is supporting a student's linguistic capabilities. And then we'll also continue to provide support and development around the use of the DRDP, which is the assessment that we transitioned to in TK this past year. That assessment has historically been used in pre-K, and our TK teachers have been very excited and very responsive about this particular assessment because it's about assessing for learning and really capturing what students do in class every single day to demonstrate their learning and to then, of course, plan for learning experiences that meet the needs of the learner. And we will also continue to meet with our TK teachers in a PLC. We did that during this past school year, and we'll continue into the next school year and moving forward doing that so that we're really meeting frequently, ensuring that we're hearing what are your needs. If we're not addressing them, what are they? What else can we do to support you in providing a high quality program to our learners? Okay. The next section really looks at curriculum, instruction, and assessment. And this is the part that I always get the most excited about. And really, I think this is where our teachers get most excited too. And it will be an area that we have to focus on, especially because, as I've mentioned, moving from a part-day program to a full-day program really there's a lot to that. And then we have a lot of questions around what does that look like to support 4-year-olds for a full day. And so starting with a few things that we want to keep in mind is that we're really always serving the needs of our multilingual learners, and that's woven into every single thing that we do. Language supports are the center of all of our discussions. Currently, our pre-K program already offers a dual language experience. It's anywhere from a 50-50 to a 90-10 design, depending on the needs of the learners at that particular school site. Yeah. So when we think about what might that look like in the future with our 3-year-olds, we would want to duplicate that same experience, of course. So that would be on the forefront of our thinking. But when we're thinking about TK, we know that we'll continue to offer that DLI experience at Jimenez. We know that some sites will be able, because the staffing will allow them to continue to support very much a dual language environment. And we'll definitely be doing that as we're able, as we have staff who are able to do so, and as the need exists. And then in some school sites, there will be English only instruction with language support that would be provided like in any other traditional program. The goal will be to continue to really take that asset-based mindset and expand all of what we're doing so that we're taking advantage of a student's full repertoire of language. As you can imagine, second to language development is SED, social emotional development. And these two areas really do go hand in hand. When we think about our TK classroom, it's going to be designed around structured play and developmentally appropriate learning experiences or activities. And the CSEF will center on the social emotional foundations for early learning will be the core design of how we engage with those learning needs in our classroom. If you take a look at that pyramid, it really is the essence of a high quality early learning environment, really thinking about ensuring that our workforce, our teachers and our instructional assistants are well trained. The environment is nurturing and highly responsive to student needs and developing those relationships, that we have very targeted supports that we are providing to students as they need them for both academic and social emotional needs. And then when needed, more intensive supports are provided. Again, as I mentioned before, the developmental observations that will be conducted with the DRDP will help teachers plan for those experiences for our students
not just academically, but also for the social and emotional needs of our learners. As already mentioned, we'll be sure that our environments will be inclusive of all students. And so we'll work closely with our special ed team in order to ensure that we are prepared to meet the needs of all of our students in the classroom. We know that our students, every student brings their own unique needs, and they also bring their own strengths that we will build upon. And so we'll work together as a team to ensure that we're prepared to support the needs of all of our learners in that general education setting. The curriculum that we'll use in our TK program is the curriculum that we already have in place. Adelante, Ready to Advance, these programs offer two pathways. One is a part-day program pathway and one is a full-day pathway. And so this transition to full-day doesn't require that we find additional or new curriculum. It really just requires that we look deeply at what we have and how it is intended to be used over the course of a full school day. The program is thematic and it encompasses all of the different areas. So math is included, fine arts is included, all of those things, all of those experiences are built in to the curriculum that we have. We just often don't get to take advantage of a lot of the opportunities that are written in because we have such a short amount of time with our learners. So the expanded opportunities will allow teachers to really dig deep into all of those other areas as well. Another thing that we have to think about with our learning design is what does rest look like in a full day TK program? You know, 4-year-olds are still taking naps, right? So what does that look like?
That's the first thing I thought of.
First thing that most people think of. And so when we were thinking about what supplies are needed for a TK classroom, it was really important that we provided cots because we know that that quiet time, that rest time will be built into their daily schedule. And many students will, in fact, take little naps. Some will probably sleep their afternoon away, especially at the beginning of the year. And so it was important to our teachers that we were mindful of that. And so that's, as we've been purchasing resources for our programs going into next year, we've ensured that we have those available as well. As mentioned, we will use the DRDP for assessment in TK, and then when our students transition to kindergarten, they'll begin taking the district benchmark with, that is NWEA, also Panorama, looking at social and emotional learning needs. Grade level teams will use CFAs and other curricular benchmarks as appropriate. And then in kindergarten, we'll also take the KSEP, which is looking at kindergarten readiness. So we'll be really excited to see how our students who are in a full day of TK show up with their readiness levels once they begin kindergarten learning using that KSEP as a measure. And now we're going to move on to the next section, unless there are any questions about the learning day or the design of the learning day.
One of my questions is you had mentioned about having some of the classes 50-50 in English and Spanish, and then also the importance of, you know, having staff that have the capacity to do so. What are we doing to ensure that that the majority of these classes will be accessible in English and in Spanish at a minimum, and then possibly even with indigenous languages as well? So what are we putting in place now to ensure that that happens? Because I would hate for our students to miss out on these opportunities because we don't have the staffing capacity. So if we don't have teachers, for example, that are bilingual or trilingual, then our students aren't going to be able to benefit, right? Or if teachers that want to teach these courses that are currently monolingual, we need to give them some time to prepare, right? To be able to be ready for this work, to do the learning necessary to make it happen. So what are we doing to ensure that we have maximum capabilities for, at a minimum, bilingual or trilingual instruction?
We currently have, as you are aware, the bilingual instructional assistants in all of our transitional kindergarten classrooms, and they have those full day and starting in our system next year. And so in the event that we have a transitional kindergarten classroom that the teacher is not multilingual, bilingual, or trilingual, then we would in fact have the assistance of the bilingual instructional assistant who can help bridge any of the language barriers that might exist.
And then a follow-up question that I have is, are we connecting with other districts? You had talked about the build your own teacher pipeline, and at the CSBA conference, the California School Board Association conference that I attended, they had a specific workshop on these types of programs and the build your own program, along with the grants and other things that they're doing, really innovative stuff. Have you all connected with other districts that are successfully doing this work already?
We have done quite a bit of connecting really throughout the course of this year and the previous school year when we were setting the foundation for all of the grants that we've been applying for. We've not done that without reaching out to partners in a variety of different ways, whether that's a different school district or, an IHE, an Institute of Higher Education partner, all of those different partnerships that are out there, opportunities, we've certainly taken advantage of every one of them, trying to learn from what others have done in other places, what's been successful, what has not been successful, trying to learn from those who have taken this journey before us.
Excellent. I believe Natomas was the school district that presented at the conference, one of the sessions that I attended. So if you have not done so, I highly recommend connecting with them, because they seem to be doing some really good work there regarding this, the Build Your Own program.
Yes, I think that our design is actually built upon the work that they had previously done.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so district facilities, of course, are going to play a really significant role in our ability to support ETK and to expand our kindergarten to full day, as well as to offer the expanded learning opportunities both before and after school. And again, this is definitely work that is being led by business services under the direction of Mr. Beecher. And I will just touch just a little bit on it this evening. Transportation is one bucket that falls underneath this section. And we know that we will provide transportation for our students to and from the TK program, where transportation is already provided. For our students who attend pre-K, they provide their own transportation. So as we transition them into a TK program, this will be an added benefit for our families, and our transportation department will work to respond to the increased demand for what those needs are as we move forward. We know, and we've talked about this a few times tonight, that our projected enrollment for TK, the transition to full day TK, the transition to full day K, and for providing that full 9-hour day, we simply do not have adequate classroom space to do that. Even when we take pre-K classrooms and pull them back into the equation and repurpose them as TK classrooms, even when we look at how we've dissolved some of our SDC classrooms and opened up some space at some school sites, even with all of that, we know that we're going to need approximately 44 additional classrooms across the district in order to bring the full day TK, full day kindergarten dream to reality for all of our students. And so meeting that demand will definitely will be the work of many to come in the near future. Due to this very limited space that we have, we've had this conversation this evening, and just a reminder that we'll have to make some really hard decisions. We know that we cannot continue to offer both our pre-K program as it is and expand to TK as we've discussed. And so we know that we need to look at options that include moving our program to different places in our community, servicing different students. We also know that if that doesn't come to fruition, if that does not happen, that we may need to discontinue that grant at this time. We also support many county preschool special education classrooms and Head Start classrooms across our district. And so we'll have to look at how we support those students in our TK classrooms when possible, and really partner closely with the county with that regard. We also have to think about TK and kindergarten classrooms differently than we do other classrooms in the district, because we know that there are space requirements. You have to have a certain amount of square footage. Access to a restroom is also very important. And so What we do know is that during the transition, it's going to get a little bit messy. Not all classrooms are going and not all classrooms are going to have restrooms in them. The most important thing is that as we move forward and we build out a plan, that we speak to how we're going to address that as we expand facilities or retrofit areas, if you will, and we'll add portables or different buildings to different sites, whatever it is that we're doing to provide that space and those amenities within or near the classroom. In places where we don't have restrooms in the classroom, we have a plan in place so that students are supervised to and from. That bilingual instructional assistant might be the one who's, if the restroom isn't in a line of vision, is walking the children or a student to a restroom when they're not doing a classroom visit. So we have plans in place where currently we're not meeting that criteria, but we'll want to address that as we build out our plan for the future. We also will want to think about any adaptive equipment that we would need in our classrooms in order to ensure that we're really meeting the needs of all of our learners, including those with specialized needs. So it will be really the work of a task force moving forward in the future to address all of those challenges with regard to facilities. And we look forward to providing more information there in the future as we really dig into that work.
Will you attach it to the Friday memo, please?
Yeah.
Just so that we can have the opportunity to visit a couple of things.
I will absolutely do that. You're welcome. The information this evening is shared for information.
Yes.
I'm sure you have many ideas spinning around in your head, and there will be lots of opportunities to be involved in a variety of different partnerships with our community, with our planning as we move forward as well.
Is the funding that is being provided to implement the program going to be adequate?
Well,
the simple answer is probably no. More grants.
I think
Simply, I mean, we cannot be the only school district in the state that is facing the space situation. So I know there's a process for qualifying for state funding for new building. If our need is based on classroom space for the additional grade level, plus expanding our current half-day kinder to full day, does that put us at the top of the list? And I turned and looked at Matt.
80-something% of the state is already
on. I understand that, but
they've done it before we did.
But they will still need additional TK classrooms.
They will.
I think we're probably going to have as high or higher demand than most.
I think we're going to be on the high side of need. Many times the systems that are used to allocate funds for facilities, they acknowledge need with at times like the level of funding you can get to, but they don't always acknowledge need in the priority of when you can get access to those funds. And so part of the issue will be getting in line with others. Another part of the issue will be having the eligibility, the construction eligibility, because we have built several schools and expanded several campuses and a great deal of our construction eligibility already. Part of the wide facility master plan process that we're digging into to get help from experts in identifying those funding sources and pursuing them, so that from the start of the process of design through the point of filling out applications to get eligibility, we're making sure that our design maximizes access to funding. We'll get in line as soon as we can. I've been in line for a while with state funding. They generally will approve a statewide school bond about the time they actually need all of the amount that will be available in that state school-wide bond because people are in line, right? So As an example, Libin Elementary is in line for, I think, 15th on the list of folks who can't even be like acknowledged as having turned in an application for funding. I feel good about that. We're 15th on the list, but we're a ways away from seeing funding for Libin Elementary at this point.
So it would seem that the conversation regarding implementing the universal transitional kinder and implementing it at a full day along with full day kinder needs to be the kind of information that we are sharing repeatedly at all of our parent meetings of any kind, because should we end up making the decision to seek another school bond, it would seem like we don't want to wait until then to say, well, look, we need all this. If we're talking about it now, then that would lay the foundation.
Well, the need is there, so we should be talking about it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And this, the product of the master planning process really is a listing of the needs that get addressed with some kind of funding, whether it comes from a state grant program, whether it comes from the district's own resources, whether it comes from the community, whether it comes from developer fees, wherever it comes from, the listing of what the needs are comes from that facility master plan.
You.
You're welcome.
I didn't mean to not direct that to you, but I knew that
Agreed.
he wouldn't have the experience and the wherewithal. But I think, we need to be talking about this frequently, that need for additional facilities.
100%.
We can work around and really support within our own system, building capacity in terms of training teachers and encouraging and developing some of those kinds of things. But if we don't have a place for the children to go, then we're stuck. So.
I know, I keep looking at the empty buildings around town thinking,
yeah.
Look at that empty lot behind the old Montgomery Wards.
That and Fallas is a huge, you're just thinking, they probably don't even arrive to the code we need, but.
Are there consequences for not providing all this in a timely manner or in a complete manner or what's the word on the street?
I think the most important thing is that we have a plan to show how we will provide this, and being able to turn it around as quickly as desired may not be possible in our community, but we need to show that we have a plan and be able to show that we're making progress toward. And I think there's lots of challenges, but lots of opportunities. So we're excited for all of the opportunity that this brings to our community, to our students, and we'll take the challenges because the opportunities are worth it. Thank you.
Well, I'll acknowledge that the Board of Education acknowledges receipt of the overview of the Universal Transitional Kindergarten Plan as presented. Cordell, do you have anything you'd like to report out?
Actually, I did have an opportunity to visit Jimenez, to visit a few of the migrant classrooms and the DLI classrooms, and it was interesting. In one of the migrant classrooms, the students were having a STEAM lesson, and it was from a remote person. They were doing it online, and the students were there with their materials, and the teacher was there to, assist them. I thought that was kind of I know we did distance learning and all that, but to really tap into that as a resource and provide that opportunity was
Because they're engineers, they're
Right.
STEM related employees of those professions too. They do them for our Saturday schools too.
Yeah, so
It's
that
cool.
was really interesting. And, I had some interaction with students and, a few of the teachers, and it was just nice to see the kids there and lots of support, within the classrooms and, everything very well organized and orderly. And so it's always interesting.
Well, the number one thing is that the children are engaged. That's,
Yes,
so whether it
absolutely.
be Zooming like that, you get engagement. That's awesome.
I know I asked Ms. Parise, said they had 400 and some students enrolled in both of that were on campus at that time. So
is this just migrant right now?
No, it's migrant and DLI.
Okay.
So I want to say, well, he said every classroom was being used. So
Awesome.
I asked about number of students, and when I said how many classes, he says, well, all of our classrooms are being used. And then I forgot to get a number, which is unimportant anyway. 28. 28, thank you. So the 44 classrooms that we need to implement transitional kindergarten is more than one new school.
Yeah, it is.
I'm just going to keep throwing that out there.
That mantra together.
Yeah.
I'll add really quickly, Ms. Cordero, to your comment that we also have our special education extended school year going on at Libin Elementary.
At
Offering
where?
services at Libin. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So we're offering those services also.
And you know what? I felt badly. I didn't know who was the administrator in charge. So I just kind of dropped in today at Jimenez. But who is doing it at Libin?
Currently, the special education department runs the program.
I'm sorry?
The special education department runs the program that's happening.
Okay,
at
is
Libin
there an
right now.
administrator in charge?
Eric, right there.
So
Eric Thompson.
do you care if I just drop by? No, absolutely. Okay. Okay. If it doesn't matter, then if I show up, I do feel like it's polite to call and say ahead of time, but I would assure everybody, if it's not a good time, you can say it's not a good time and I'll get that. I won't be offended at all.
Hollingshead? No. Mr. Valencia?
Yes. So I wanted to take a moment to honor and recognize Juneteenth. My understanding is that this is now a federal holiday, and I had the pleasure of attending 2 celebrations of Juneteenth in Lompoc as well as in Santa Barbara. And for me, what was really one of the things that I took away was families and children, shared like the importance of us honoring Black history as American history, because unfortunately some folks have relegated it to February as Black History Month. I'm glad that there's a growing awareness, right, that we have to move beyond that, beyond tokenization in terms of honoring the diversity in our community, in our state, in our country. And so I just wanted to take a moment to recognize this very important holiday that celebrates African Americans, Black Americans, along with their allies, fighting for a world that has less discrimination, less racism, and the elimination of barriers, which is something that I heard a lot about today during the presentations. And so I'm looking forward to continuing to work with my board colleagues in the district and our staff to eliminate, all the bias that exists out there. We all, suffer from bias. That's the thing with bias, is most folks don't recognize that they have them, even when we do. And so I'm excited to continuing to bring awareness to this and to make sure that our district truly is an equitable place for everyone. at the Juneteenth celebration, I also noticed that one of the members of our LCAP committee, LaWanda Lyons Pruitt, she was recognized as Person of the Year by Congressman Salud Carbajal, and she was given a certificate of recognition. I think that that's really, really well-deserved. LaWanda Lyons Pruitt is a leader in our community. She is in almost every, committee, doing great work, inspiring everyone in our community. And so I just want to take a moment to recognize that we have great leaders, that are working with that believe in our youth, that believe in our community, and that sacrifice a lot of time and energy. So thank you very much to Ms. LaWanda Lyons Pruitt for her inspirational role supporting not just the Bonita School District, but also the high school district as well. I also wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that I noticed in my board packet that we used to have the hiring changes for certificated and for classified staff. We used to have that as a part of open session where members of the public can look at, who's being hired or who's moving from, temporary to probationary status. And I want to recommend that we continue to have that in open session so that our community can see and hear who we are hiring and why. And the reason that's important is because there's been concerns around a lack of transparency in our systems. And I also share that concern. I want to make sure that I'm a leader in an institution that is transparent, especially if we don't have anything to hide. I think it's important that we keep our hiring practices open so that we eliminate the chances of nepotism and favoritism happening in hiring. Another thing that I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge is the promotion ceremonies. We heard from alumni that graduated from our school today. I believe she is a graduate of UCSB or is about to graduate. I always find it really special when our graduates of our elementary and middle school district come back and, and speak to us about their experience and how we can make it an even better one for them. And what caught my attention about the speaker was she mentioned, that she couldn't believe that we thought it would be best for students not to have promotion ceremonies. And so I'm curious to learn more about that. Who made the decision for those promotion ceremonies to not take place? Did we make every effort possible to try to keep those promotion ceremonies happening, what some people refer to as 8th grade graduation? And so I just want to make sure that we are connected, right, to the pulse and to the needs of our community, because it seems like neighboring school districts and many other school districts were able to still accomplish a graduation or a promotion for 8th graders. But for some reason, our district did not do that. And so I want to learn more about that. And I look forward to working with our next superintendent to figure out, why that happened, because I think it was a tremendously missed opportunity. If there's staff in our district who believe that 8th grade promotion is an insignificant event for our community, I think by now we've all figured out, if we haven't already, that it is significant for our community, that these are milestones to be met to reach the next level of promoting higher education. And so if some have the idea that this is just not a significant celebration, I think we've heard from enough staff, students, and parents that it clearly is. And I know I definitely see the value in it as well as a way to continue to promote higher education for our district. The other thing that I heard from our community today was in support of ethnic studies. And, I have the blessing of being an ethnic studies teacher at the high school level, where I get to see the benefits of students when they get to learn about their history and culture and the cultures of others. And I appreciated the comment from, I believe it was Mr. Lozano, who was also a member of our LCAP committee, I believe. And his advocacy has been instrumental. He said that he supports this work to create good citizens, right? People that appreciate their culture and the culture of others, as well as the importance of pursuing higher education. And we know from research that ethnic studies does that. And so I'm looking forward to being an agendized item, as I requested in the February board meeting after meeting with President Lara to agendize that. So I'm looking forward to seeing that in our agenda in the very near future. I also wanted to take a moment to recognize the advocacy today around dual language immersion. I know that there's people in our community that have been advocating for this for years, and it still seems like we don't have the expansion that's needed to meet the demand, and clearly the desire is there. So I'm excited to work with our board and work with our district and all of our staff and families to make that a reality, to make that a norm, to make dual language immersion.
Lost you.
Nope.
I just wanted to also say in the past, as a board member, I remember I would receive and hello. Can you all hear me? Hello.
Hello.
Hi, sorry, I think I got cut off for a moment.
It froze.
It froze.
Oh, okay, thank you. Were you all able to hear my comment around dual language immersion?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. So yeah, so in closing, I just wanted to recommend, if it's possible for Kristen to please send me as a board member, and perhaps for the other board members as well, an email with the board comments so that I'm able to reconnect and reflect on the comments from the public. I know that was done in the past. In my emails, I would receive an email of what the public comments were. Appreciate receiving that in the future. I wish everyone a restful summer for those of you that are taking some summer off, and wish everybody well. Thank you so much.
I think that part of that was done in the past because they were written when we were in Zoom. When people speak in front of us, it's not the same as when they send us their comments written. Lozano's, I don't think would be. Yvonne's or some of those guys, unless we summarize them.
Watch it on YouTube.
You go back to YouTube and watch it because like Mr. Hollins had said, the one that Mr. Beecher read, you definitely be able to receive.
Yeah, I don't have anything to report out.
Myself either. Mr. Beecher?
I'll just say really quickly, thank you so much for the opportunity to serve the school district in the interim superintendent role. This will be my final board meeting as interim superintendent this year. It has been a wonderful challenge and an honor to sit up here and do the best I can to partner in this work that we do. Having thought a little bit about what in the world I would say, I have to say that the teamwork up here at the dais with you to make this work happen, and the many board meetings we had of different types and structures, and your flexibility and dedication to make that happen is appreciated. The teamwork from Kristen and Maggie supporting me in that office, Jessica Parra, my secretary, in my business services office, my team of coordinators who stretched to serve and support all of the work that had to occur as I stretched my role into this role. I really thank that team as well. And then my partners in cabinet, Melissa Bijou, Brian Rickey, for their support and counsel as we worked our way through what was a very busy and challenging 6 months. So thank you to you for the privilege of doing this work. And thank you to the folks I mentioned and some of the folks I may have left off, not on purpose, but just in the interest of time. The list is really long. I'm really grateful for everyone who stopped me in the hallway to say thank you, who provided me a outlet to talk about and ask questions and serve as a sounding board. Many of you know who you are. Some of you are selfless to not even notice that you served in a support role for me, but I just, from the bottom of my heart, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I don't have flowers, but I'll let you hit the gavel.